There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over the world long after the sun has slipped away. A quiet that feels older than any story, older than breath itself. It is the kind of quiet that belongs to vast caves, abandoned temples, forgotten forests, and places where the wind has stopped moving because there is nothing left for it to stir. This quiet is not peaceful. It is not gentle. It feels like something deeper, something waiting, something hollow. When trying to understand emptiness through the figure of the Lich, this quiet is the closest comparison. He is not a creature of noise or wild fury. He is not driven by rage or passion. Instead, he is defined by a stillness that never breaks, a stillness that carries no feeling at all. The Lich exists in Adventure Time as a presence that feels older than the shape he wears. When he stands motionless, when his voice drips into the air with cold certainty, there is no tension in him, no hesitation, no flicker of emotion. That absence is the heart of who he is. He is not full of hatred. Hatred implies fire, heat, desire, or conflict. He is not full of sorrow. Sorrow implies longing or memory. He is not full of ambition. Ambition belongs to someone who wants their own story to grow. The Lich contains none of these things. He is empty, and from that emptiness, his purpose rises with eerie calm. For many characters in U, emptiness is something that develops through experience. It comes after loss, after fear, after too much time alone. For the Lich, emptiness is original. It is not a wound. It is not a scar. It is the foundation. This makes him a unique lens for exploring the feeling of hollowness, because unlike characters who struggle with emptiness, the Lich embodies it without conflict. He is what emotional absence looks like when it has no desire to be anything else. When he speaks, the world seems to recoil. His words are slow, steady, and cold. There is no edge in his tone, no growl, no tremor. His calmness is unsettling because it feels like the voice of something that has no inner landscape. There is no warmth behind his sentences, no personal attachment to the idea he is sharing. It is simply a statement of what must be. Emptiness does not argue. It does not plead. It simply consumes, because emptiness is the natural opposite of life, not a rival, but a condition that spreads in silence. The Lich's body, regardless of the form he takes, always carries the same hollow presence. In one shape, he is skeletal and towering, a figure drained of colour, vitality, or warmth. In another, he steals the appearance of those he inhabits, but even inside their bodies, he moves with the same eerie stillness. The Lich's possession of mortal forms represents emptiness inhabiting something that once held meaning. It is the feeling of looking in a mirror and not recognizing the reflection, the experience of losing yourself to something cold and consuming. When he wears another body, the body does not become angry or hateful. It becomes vacant, like a shell holding the faint outline of who it used to be. This is why he is so frightening. Not because he destroys, but because he erases. Destruction implies action, a sudden burst of energy. Erasure implies stillness. It implies the slow fading of colour from a painting, the quiet draining of hope from a heart, the soft collapse of a once lively place into dust. The Lich's emptiness spreads like that, quietly, calmly, naturally, as if he is not forcing anything to happen, but simply revealing what lies at the end of all things. In the deepest sense, the Lich is not a symbol of death. Death in U comes with cycles, life grows again, souls move on. Stories continue. Death is a transition. The Lich does not transition. He seeks an ending that leaves no soil behind for seeds to grow. He is the absence of story. He is what happens when nothing is allowed to take root. This difference is important when understanding emptiness. Death contains movement. Emptiness does not. It is a still pool of water, unbroken, untouched, and utterly unmoving. When characters like Finn or Jake or Princess Bubblegum stand near him, they react with fear or resolve because they can feel what stands before them. It is not a rival they must outsmart. It is not a tyrant whose plans must be stopped. It is a force that drains the world of meaning simply by existing. Even when the Lich is trapped, frozen, or imprisoned, the emptiness inside him never weakens. It feels like he could remain unmoving for centuries, and nothing inside him would change. No hunger for revenge, no desperation, no longing to escape. Only stillness waiting for the moment when it can continue its quiet work. This is why his presence affects the world so deeply. Life recognizes emptiness instinctively. Trees wither, magic recoils, animals flee. The land itself seems to shrink back as if it can sense that something ancient and hollow stands nearby. The Lich does not need to raise his voice or wave his hand. The emptiness around him spreads like cold air seeping through cracks in a house. It arrives without sound, without struggle, without passion. Exploring the Lich through the lens of emptiness also reveals something about human emotion. Many people imagine emptiness as a dramatic collapse, a loud breaking of the inner self. But in truth, emptiness is quiet. It moves slowly. It begins with the dimming of interests, the quiet withdrawal from once cherished places, the soft loss of colour in daily life. It is the absence of feeling, not the surge of negative emotion. When seen this way, the Lich becomes a symbol for the moments when a person feels emotion slipping away, when the world grows distant, when connection feels out of reach. This parallel gives the character unexpected philosophical weight. The Lich's emptiness becomes a way to reflect on how hollowness takes shape in the human heart. It shows that emptiness is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is simply a loss of warmth. Sometimes it is the slow departure of presence. Sometimes it is the feeling that the world has grown too quiet inside you. Yet there is a difference that protects the story from glorifying him. The Lich's emptiness is absolute. It seeks to unravel all life. Human emptiness is different. It emerges as a response to exhaustion, fear, or grief. It is not a force of nature, it is a stage of experience. This makes him a mirror that reveals the shape of emptiness without suggesting that emptiness is an identity. His nature shows the danger of becoming hollow enough that nothing inside you responds to the world anymore. Because of this, the Lich serves as a reminder of what the absence of emotion can become if it hardens completely. His emptiness has no cracked edges. There is no glimmer inside him, no spark waiting to reignite. He is what emptiness would look like if it became permanent. That permanence is what makes him disturbing. It is also what makes him a powerful symbol for people who fear losing themselves to numbness. When the Lich speaks his iconic lines about the destiny of all life being silence, the statement feels less like a threat and more like an observation. He is not warning. He is not boasting. He is simply describing the world he believes should exist. A world without voices, without movement, without warmth. A world of stillness. A world of void. His words hang in the air like frost, slow and creeping, born of a mind emptied of everything that once tied it to life. In this way, the Lich becomes the embodiment of an emotional state taken to its furthest extreme. He is the end point of emptiness, the place where all feeling has drained away and nothing remains but cold purpose. Characters like Finn and Jake push against him because they represent the opposite of emptiness. They carry meaning, they carry connection, they carry warmth. Their fight with him is not a battle between good and evil. It is a clash between fullness and void, presence and absence, life and the quiet that waits at its border. Seeing the Lich this way turns him into a philosophical concept rather than a simple villain. His emptiness is not a punishment or a reaction, it is his core. It shapes his choices, his language, his movements, and his influence. He is not angry because anger requires something inside to burn. He is not grieving because grief requires memory and attachment. He is the cold surface of a frozen lake, unbroken, unmoving, and stretching into the distance without end. Understanding the Lich through the framework of emptiness gives the story a layer of emotional texture that is easy to miss. Beneath his terrifying design and horrific power lies a concept that resonates on a psychological level. He is what happens when emptiness is allowed to define something completely. This is the silent core that he carries into every universe he touches. No matter the timeline or the form he wears, his hollowness remains unchanged, like a single note held forever in the dark. This is the essence of the Lich. A being of pure stillness, a presence without warmth, a core without emotion. A reminder of how emptiness feels when it stretches too far into the soul until nothing is left but the quiet. There is a particular feeling that settles over a room when someone you care about leaves. The air becomes thinner. Colours seem to fade a little. Even if everything looks exactly the same, something is missing, something small but important, something that once created a sense of warmth. When thinking about emptiness through the lens of the Lich, this sensation becomes much larger, as if the world itself steps away and leaves behind a hollow landscape where nothing familiar can take root. He represents the complete absence of warmth, not only in a physical sense, but in an emotional, spiritual, and conceptual way. To understand what it means to exist in a universe without warmth, his presence offers the clearest path. Warmth in adventure time comes in many forms. It appears in the glow of friendships that stretch across years. It appears in the laughter that fills the tree fort, in the gentle encouragement between Finn and Jake, in the caring bonds that connect Princess Bubblegum to her people, in the way Marceline sings about her memories, and in the small gestures that characters share without thinking about it. Warmth is everywhere in Oo, even in the most unlikely places. It arrives through companionship, empathy, shared stories, and the soft resilience of its inhabitants. It acts as a thread that keeps the world connected. The Lich stands entirely outside this fabric. Warmth does not reach him. He does not respond to compassion. He does not absorb care, friendship, or kindness. His presence removes warmth from the environment, the way a deep winter cold pulls heat from a house. He is not actively rejecting warmth. He simply does not contain the capacity to recognize it. His world is one where connection is impossible, because connection requires a spark inside that can react to another spark. He is a universe in which that first spark never existed. To imagine what a universe shaped by the Lich would feel like, picture a landscape drained of movement. Picture forests without the rustle of leaves, oceans without the shimmer of sun on the surface, and hills where the wind moves but carries no sense of life. The Lich does not create such an environment through violence. Violence implies a decision made through passion or conflict. Instead, The warmth simply falls away around him, leaving behind a quiet atmosphere that feels untouched by the presence of living things. When he walks through a place, the air feels thinner, like it is struggling to hold onto the energy it once had. The world becomes an echo of itself. Light seems dimmer. Soil feels dry and lacking in the vitality that once supported life. Plants begin to wither long before he touches them. Animals sense him from far away and flee before he moves near. Everything that relies on warmth to thrive feels the absence of it long before any direct confrontation begins. This is what makes the Lich so unnerving. He does not need to speak or strike or even lift a hand. The environment itself reacts to him. Ooh is a world filled with magic, colour, and emotional presence, and each of these elements responds when he enters. It is not a battle between two forces. It is the collapse of one force simply because the other cannot coexist with it. Warmth cannot take root in a place where emptiness settles fully. Understanding this dynamic reveals something about the emotional meaning of warmth. In the human experience, warmth often appears in small moments, like someone asking how you are, someone remembering your favourite stories, or someone choosing to stay by your side. Warmth is not only heat, it is presence, it is attention, it is the willingness to care. Without it, people often begin to feel cold inside, even if their surroundings stay the same. This coldness mirrors the kind of atmosphere the Lich carries into every corner of the world he touches. His lack of warmth also explains why he is not truly angry. Anger requires heat. It requires a fire inside the self that reacts to something it does not like. The Lich has no such fire. His motivations do not rise from emotion. They rise from emptiness, from a purpose that contains no personal desire. He does not rage. He does not hate. He simply moves with a certainty that stems from the absence of internal warmth. This absence gives him his stillness, his calm, and his terrifying clarity. When Finn or Jake confront him, they do so with emotion. Fear, determination, hope, and love are all present in their actions. They rush forward because the warmth inside them pushes them to protect each other, protect their home, and protect the life that fills the world. The Lich does not respond in kind. He does not react to their passion. He does not mirror their emotional charge. He remains cold, unchanging, and unmoved. Their warmth cannot melt the quiet that fills him, because there is no surface inside him that responds to heat. This difference in emotional temperature shapes every encounter. Warmth drives characters to connect, to help each other, to grow, and to understand one another. Cold emptiness isolates. The Lich stands alone because he cannot participate in the emotional exchanges that define living beings. He does not share stories. He does not seek companionship. He does not long for anything. He simply exists as a reminder of what happens when warmth is removed completely from the fabric of a universe. To see this contrast more clearly, consider how Finn changes when he is exposed to the Lich. Finn is full of movement and emotional openness, yet standing near the Lich makes him freeze. His energy falters. His natural desire to communicate becomes strained. His instinct to protect remains, but something inside him chills because he senses that warmth alone is not enough to reach into the hollow figure before him. Jake reacts similarly. His natural comfort and humour fade when he senses the emptiness around the Lich. Jake often breaks tension with jokes or comforting remarks, but those instincts fall silent in the Lich's presence because the atmosphere leaves no room for levity. The Lich drains warmth not through force, but through contrast. Everything full of life feels more fragile when placed near something entirely empty. The brightness in others becomes more noticeable, yet also feels more at risk. The warmth that characters carry becomes something they must protect because it is the one thing the Lich can never generate. In a strange way, his emptiness defines the importance of warmth by showing what the world looks like without it. This effect carries through his possession of other forms. When he overtakes a body, the warmth of that being fades. Their eyes lose their light, their expressions flatten. Their voices become steady, cold, and devoid of personal tone. The host does not become wild. The host becomes still. It is as if someone has removed the inner fire that once gave the body life. This is emptiness at work, flowing into a vessel that once held meaning. The most striking example of this is when he takes control of a familiar figure. The body remains recognizable, yet the personality is gone, replaced by something quiet and dispassionate. The warmth that once defined the character has evaporated, leaving behind a shell shaped by emptiness. Watching this transformation provides a clear image of what the Lich's presence does to any world he enters. It turns the familiar into something distant, and the living into something quiet. In this sense, a universe guided by the Lich would not be a place of fire and ruin. It would be a place without songs, without shared stories, without laughter drifting over the hills. It would be a space where the warmth of connection has been replaced by silence, where communities do not gather because there are no longer individuals capable of forming them. It would be a landscape where nothing grows because nothing feels the gentle pull of life. This absence of warmth can be seen as a metaphor for emotional disconnection. People sometimes experience moments when the world feels colder, not physically, but emotionally. When smiles feel distant, when relationships feel heavy, when it becomes difficult to find comfort in familiar places, the world seems to lose its warmth. The Lich mirrors this sensation on a cosmic scale. His presence amplifies the idea that emptiness creates a climate where warmth cannot survive. Yet the contrast also shows something about resilience. In every encounter, characters respond to the cold with determination. They cling to the warmth inside them. They refuse to let the emptiness define their world. This resistance reveals a quiet truth about warmth. It is fragile, yet powerful. It can be dimmed, but it can also be restored. Unlike the Lich, who contains no inner life, characters in OO can reignite their warmth through connection, memory, and care. Understanding this difference is key to understanding the Lich's symbolic role. His emptiness is absolute, so he reveals the value of warmth by creating a space where it is absent. The world responds to him because it recognizes that warmth is life. Warmth is connection. Warmth is meaning. Without it, everything collapses inward and becomes silent. The Lich's calm voice also contributes to the sense of coldness he brings. His tone carries no warmth. There is no emotion in his words. They fall into the air like frost, steady and sharp, leaving no trace of personality behind. This is why people react so strongly to his speech. He does not yell, he does not threaten. He simply speaks with a certainty that feels older than light itself. His voice creates a space where warmth cannot thrive because it carries no sign of life. His stillness contributes to the same atmosphere. The Lich does not pace. He does not gesture wildly. He stands in calm silence, as if movement would require an energy he does not possess. This stillness feels like the absence of life, rather than a controlled choice. It is the quiet of a place completely drained of warmth. This lack of motion gives him a sense of inevitability. as if he exists outside the rhythms of living beings. By understanding the Lich through this lens, the idea of a universe without warmth becomes clearer. It is not a universe filled with fear or chaos. It is a universe that has fallen silent. It is a world where nothing stirs because there is no internal life left to stir it. The ground does not crack under the weight of destruction. The sky does not darken because of smoke. Everything simply stops responding. This is the emptiness that the Lich represents. Yet his presence in the story also reminds us that warmth is something that can resist emptiness. The Lich cannot create warmth, but characters can. They bring their connections, their feelings, and their shared experiences into the cold and hold on to them even when the atmosphere presses inward. This resistance highlights the strength of warmth, and perhaps this is the most important part of understanding him. The Lich shows what happens when warmth disappears, and in doing so reveals why warmth must be protected. In the end, a universe without warmth is not a place defined by destruction. It is defined by absence. It is defined by the quiet that follows when connection fades. The Lich stands as the clearest symbol of this quiet, a reminder of what emptiness becomes when nothing remains to interrupt it. Through him, the meaning of warmth becomes sharper, brighter, and more necessary. His emptiness reveals the truth that warmth is not simply comfort, it is life. There is a quiet truth that runs beneath every world, a truth older than kingdoms and older than memory. Creation leaves echoes. Every time something comes into existence, whether it is a star forming in a distant sky or a single thought taking shape inside a mind, that act leaves behind a faint resonance. Even when the object or idea disappears, something remains, a trace, a vibration, a soft reminder that something once lived there. You can see these echoes in ruined temples, in broken machines, in the memories people hold of each other, and in the way time preserves what once mattered even after the world has changed. The Lich stands as the complete opposite of this echo. He is the silence that follows when the resonance fades. He is what remains when creation no longer leaves traces. His emptiness is not only the absence of warmth, it is the removal of the echo itself. When life disappears, its memory usually remains. When the Lich acts, he aims to remove both the thing and the memory of the thing. His purpose eliminates the ripple that creation produces, turning existence into a flat surface without impressions. To understand emptiness through the Lich, it helps to first understand what creation feels like in U. The world is filled with magic, invention, art, friendship, and nature. Princess Bubblegum builds and breathes life into her people. Marceline generates songs from her memories. Finn dreams of adventures that become real journeys. Jake creates comfort through his personality. Even small characters add to the world through their laughter and movement. U is filled with echoes. Every action generates something that stays behind. The Lich is what happens when those echoes are removed one by one, until there is no sound left at all. In many ways, creation in U is chaotic. It spills outward without strict organization. Magic sparks randomly. Kingdoms rise from the imaginative whims of strange beings. Life forms grow in shapes that do not exist anywhere else. The land has a sense of curiosity. New life appears almost out of habit. The world seems to enjoy creating things simply because it can. These creations carry energy, colour, shape, and emotion. They hold their own form of warmth. Each new thing adds a note to the symphony of the world, expanding it in unpredictable ways. The Lich does not create. He removes He does not build. He reduces. His intentions do not add complexity. They strip complexity away. If creation produces echoes, the Lich produces a silence that stretches outward like a frozen lake. Nothing stirs beneath the surface. Nothing waits to rise. His quiet is absolute, and that is what makes it so unsettling. Even destruction leaves traces. A ruined structure still gives clues about what once stood. A burnt forest still hints at the life that once existed. The Lich's version of erasure leaves nothing to interpret. No memory, no mark, no sign that life ever existed at all. This is why he is so fundamentally different from other forces in the world. Even dangerous beings in U tend to create something by existing. Ice King creates disruption, humour, and emotional resonance. Marceline creates music. Princess Bubblegum creates life. Even villainous characters create consequences that lead to new relationships and developments. The Lich alone seeks the removal of everything that creation builds. The idea of emptiness becomes clearer when seen against this backdrop. Creation is noisy. It is vibrant, messy, unpredictable, and full of mistakes that still matter. Emptiness is silent. It holds no mistakes because it holds nothing at all. When the Lich speaks about the silence that awaits all life, he is expressing the purest form of emptiness, not as an emotional longing, but as a natural state he believes all things should return to. This silence is the absence of echoes, the final flattening of the ripples created by life. Magic in U also reflects the tension between creation and emptiness. Magic is inherently generative. It alters, builds, transforms, and inspires. When magic interacts with the Lich, something unusual happens. Instead of creating strange side effects or new forms of life, magic becomes still. The Lich stands outside the creative power of the world. He does not bend magic toward creation, but toward the removal of motion and meaning. This reveals his influence as not simply destructive, but fundamentally anti-creative. This anti-creative presence allows the Lich to spread emptiness without needing to move quickly. Creation grows outward, but emptiness sinks inward. It removes layers until nothing remains. When the Lich touches a moment, the moment loses its colour. When he touches a place, the place loses its spark. When he touches a being, the being loses its identity. These losses do not feel violent. They feel like a quiet unmaking, a return to stillness that leaves no whisper of what existed before. This dynamic provides a meaningful lens for human emotion. People often feel emptiness when their inner sense of creation fades. Creation in the emotional sense means building connections, memories, dreams, and personal meaning. Emptiness appears when those internal structures feel distant or dissolved. Ideas do not spark the way they used to. Connection feels harder to reach. Experience carries less weight. The echoes inside a person begin to quiet. This does not always happen through dramatic events. Sometimes it happens slowly, subtly, like the gradual fading of a photograph left in the sun. Through this metaphor, the Lich becomes a representation of what it feels like when a person senses the echoes of their own life. Softening, when memories feel less vivid, when passions grow quieter, when the inner voice becomes still. His emptiness reflects a kind of inner silence that many people experience, even though his version is far more absolute and far more destructive. Another way to understand the Lich's connection to emptiness is to consider how he interacts with history. Characters like Betty, Marceline, and Princess Bubblegum carry personal histories that shape their actions. Their lives contain past mistakes, growth, relationships, and emotions that continue to influence their futures. The Lich stands apart from history. He carries no personal memories, no emotional past, no sense of origin that ties him to anything. His history is not a story. It is a lineage of emptiness that repeats itself across timelines. Each version of him looks different, yet the echo inside remains unchanged because he has no inner thread connecting him to creation. This is what makes his alternate universe forms so haunting. No matter which version appears, each contains the same hollow core. The environment shapes everything else in U, but it does not shape the Lich. He does not absorb memories of his surroundings. He does not adapt to the world he enters. His emptiness survives every transformation untouched. In a world filled with echoes, he is the one thing that produces none. This absolute consistency reveals something important about emptiness. When a person experiences emotional emptiness, the feeling often remains across different environments. A change in location does not automatically restore warmth or meaning. The inner void follows quietly because it exists inside the self, not in the surroundings. The Lich symbolizes this phenomenon with perfect clarity. No matter where he appears, he carries the same internal silence because the silence is who he is. Creation and emptiness also shape the way characters respond to him. Finn naturally creates meaning everywhere he goes. He builds relationships, stories, and ideals. Jake creates comfort and connection. Princess Bubblegum creates structure and life. Marceline creates emotion through her music. These creative forces both repel and dilute the effects of emptiness. They act as counterweights to the Lich's influence. Wherever they go, they leave their own echoes that help hold the world together. This contrast shows that creation does not always overpower emptiness, but it challenges it. When the Lich's emptiness enters a space filled with creative energy, the creative energy does not fall silent immediately. It resists. It glows faintly against the cold. It tries to leave traces even as the emptiness spreads. This resistance symbolizes the human capacity to generate meaning even in moments when the internal void feels overwhelming. Creation persists even when faced with a force that aims to silence it. The Lich reveals the fragility and resilience of creation by pushing against it. Through him, creation's value becomes clearer. The echoes of life matter because they are delicate. They can fade, but they can also be renewed. Even when emptiness presses inward, creation continues to leave traces. Each trace makes the world feel alive. Each trace stands as evidence that something mattered, even if only for a moment. The Lich's purpose is to remove those traces, not because he hates them, but because he does not contain the capacity to understand them. In his eyes, creation complicates existence. It introduces sound into silence, colour into stillness, warmth into void. He seeks to restore existence to a state without echoes, without layers, without meaning. His vision of the universe is not cruel. It is quiet, completely and utterly quiet. When characters confront him, they are defending their echoes. They are defending the stories that bind them, the memories that shape their hearts, and the connections that bring warmth to the world. The Lich does not attack these things with rage. He removes them calmly. He does not argue about their importance. He simply believes they should not exist. This difference makes him one of the purest embodiments of emptiness in any story. He is not a destroyer. He is an unmaker. And unmaking is not destruction. It is the removal of what creation leaves behind. When viewed this way, the Lich becomes a philosophical concept, not just a villain. He represents the idea that existence can collapse into silence if creation stops echoing. He shows what happens when the world loses its spark, when the inner echo inside a person grows too faint to feel, when meaning feels distant or unreachable. Through his stillness, the emotional experience of emptiness becomes larger and clearer, almost like a shape cast against the landscape of ooh. The Lich's emptiness is not meant to be relatable. It is meant to be a reminder that creation, no matter how small, leaves traces that make the world feel alive. A reminder that meaning grows from presence, not absence. A reminder that even the softest echo matters. Corruption is often imagined as something loud and overwhelming, a force that stains everything it touches with violent colour and chaotic movement. In many stories, corruption twists, shapes, melts, structures, and contorts familiar forms into something monstrous. It is a process people associate with distortion rather than disappearance, with the transformation of what is living into something unnatural. Yet through the Lich, corruption takes on a different meaning entirely. It becomes a slow hollowing, a quiet removal of substance that leaves things standing but empty inside. Instead of twisting a form, it drains it. Instead of creating chaos, it replaces life with silence. To understand emptiness through corruption, the Lich provides the clearest image. His influence does not scream. It does not tear or burn. It slips into the world like a cold current beneath calm water. Things touched by him do not explode or crack apart. They fade, their vitality weakens, their purpose dissolves. Their inner spark dims until there is nothing left but a quiet shell. In this way, corruption under the Lich is not the presence of something harmful, but the removal of everything that makes a thing alive. When he extends his hand, the magic that spreads from him does not resemble fire, lightning, or poisonous energy. It feels more like the breath of a long-forgotten tomb, the cold of a space where nothing has moved for centuries. This magic is not additive. It does not bring anything new into the world. It only takes away. Everything it touches becomes still, as if life itself retreats in fear. The corruption pulls strength from bones, colour from surfaces, and intention from minds. It leaves behind versions of things that look intact, but no longer contain the meaning they once carried. This form of corruption reflects a deeper emotional truth. Sometimes emptiness does not arrive suddenly. It does not crash through the door or announce itself with a loud break. It arrives slowly, quietly, in the small moments when enthusiasm weakens, when once bright ideas begin to dim, when the world around a person starts feeling slightly heavier or quieter. This subtle hollowing matches the nature of the Lich. His corruption behaves like the internal fading of interest or meaning. It does not destroy identity in an instant. It hollows it out from the inside, leaving behind the shape but not the essence. The clearest example of this is seen when the Lich possesses a living being. The body does not twist or become monstrous. Instead, the personality drains away, eyes lose their depth. Movements slow until they feel unnatural, not because they are violent, but because they lack intention. Speech becomes steady and cold, stripped of humour, emotion, and rhythm. The person remains recognizable, yet something essential is gone. They are present, but absent, breathing, but empty. This is not transformation. It is erasure carried out gently, almost peacefully, as if exhaustion has replaced the spark of life. This form of corruption acts as a metaphor for how emotional emptiness can settle inside someone. People sometimes feel themselves drifting away from their own actions, watching their movements from a distance, participating in life with less presence than before. The hollowing does not always show up in dramatic ways. It can appear in the quiet loss of interest in things that once brought joy, or in the sense that one is moving through the world on automatic, with little connection to the experience. The Lich embodies this internal fading. His presence reflects the feeling of being drained slowly until the self becomes harder to recognize. The landscape responds to him in a similar way. Plants do not flare up or shatter. They wither, they droop, they lose their vividness. Soil becomes dry, not because something scorched it, but because something withdrew from it. Trees feel ancient and brittle near him, even if they were once lush. This hollowing effect shows how corruption under the Lich is not destruction, but the removal of the energy that allowed the world to thrive. Nature feels his presence like a weight that pulls life downward. Magic reacts in the same manner. Magic in U is vibrant, unpredictable, and often filled with personality. When the Lich touches it, the movement stops, the glow fades. The spell becomes empty of intent. It is as if the magic itself forgets why it existed. This reveals the core of his influence. He is not opposed to magic. He does not fear its power. He empties it by removing the meaning that drives it. Without intention, even powerful spells lose their direction. They become echoes of their former selves, faint and hollow. The hollowing that the Lich represents extends to entire environments. Even when he is imprisoned or immobilized, the atmosphere around him feels different. Silence deepens. Light appears colder. Movement becomes slower, as if the world hesitates to exist too close to him. This passive corruption hints at the quiet reach of emptiness. It does not need constant action. It grows through presence alone. Simply being near the Lich is enough to begin the process of hollowing. Characters sense this instinctively. Finn, full of energy and purpose, feels something shift inside him whenever he encounters the Lich. His instincts become sharper, but his warmth becomes guarded. He senses that the hollowing force is not something he can rush against blindly. Jake, whose personality radiates comfort and humour, feels gravity in the Lich's presence. His natural inclination to diffuse tension falls silent because the emptiness around him does not give space for levity. Marceline, who carries deep emotional history, reacts with quiet seriousness because she recognizes something that does not care about memory or feeling. Even Princess Bubblegum, who moves through the world with calculated intention, senses that no amount of logic can influence something that is not fueled by emotion or thought. The hollowing extends to narrative meaning as well. The Lich does not build stories. He ends them. Other characters generate new arcs through their actions, changing relationships or inner conflicts. The Lich interrupts these arcs by removing the meaning that fuels them. He is not a complication. He is an erasure. This makes him a symbolic force that stands against the natural rhythm of stories, which are always about growth, change, or experience. The Lich is the refusal of story. His corruption empties meaning from events the same way it empties life from living things. This concept mirrors another emotional experience. Sometimes people encounter moments where their inner story feels paused or weakened. They feel disconnected from their own narrative, as if they are watching their life from outside rather than participating in it. This sensation of becoming hollow within one's own story reflects the subtle power of the Lich. He embodies the fear that one can lose the sense of direction or purpose that once guided them, leaving behind a quiet, numb space. The hollowing also reveals how fragile meaning can be. Life in U thrives because it contains variety, warmth, personality, and unpredictability. Each of these elements can be drained, but they can also be replenished. The Lich shows that meaning can fade if nothing nurtures it. Yet characters show that meaning can also return through connection, memory, and presence. His hollowing exposes the vulnerability of the inner spark, while the characters who oppose him reveal its resilience. This tension creates one of the most important symbolic roles the Lich holds. He demonstrates how emptiness can spread quietly and naturally. It does not need dramatic force. It grows in the absence of meaning. It spreads through stillness. It expands through silence. In contrast, meaning requires intention. Life requires connection. Warmth requires movement. Characters must create meaning actively, while emptiness requires nothing at all. Through this contrast, the Lich becomes a mirror for moments when people lose energy, when they stop creating meaning because the world feels too heavy or distant. His hollowing shows what happens when nothing nourishes the inner world. The colours fade, the spark dims, the echoes of creation grow quiet. Yet his presence in the story also reveals that hollowing is not final, because the world around him continues to resist. It continues to build. It continues to carry warmth despite the cold he brings. Understanding corruption as hollowing helps explain why he feels inevitable and yet never fully victorious. Emptiness spreads easily, but life pushes back through simple acts of meaning. A conversation, a shared memory, a small gesture of care, or even a single moment of courage generates enough warmth to disrupt the hollowing. This dynamic is why characters never disappear completely when facing him. Their meaning might dim, but it resurfaces. Their echoes might weaken, but they return. The Lich reveals the danger of letting emptiness settle inside the self for too long. Yet, he also reveals the strength people hold when they continue to create meaning, even in the face of that emptiness. His hollowing is powerful because it asks nothing. Resistance is powerful because it asks everything. This delicate balance shapes every moment he is present in the story. In the end, the Lich's corruption shows that emptiness is not noise, but the quiet collapse of meaning. It is the slow fading of inner light. It is the gentle removal of purpose. He stands as a symbol of what happens when the spark inside a person grows too thin to illuminate anything. Yet he also stands as a reminder that the spark can return, because the world around him never stops generating warmth, connection, and life. There is a quiet fear that lives inside many people, a fear that does not reveal itself through panic or alarm. It is the fear of losing the sense of who you are, not through some sudden event, but gradually, softly, through a slow drift away from your own centre. When your thoughts no longer sound like your own, when your choices feel distant, when you look at yourself and struggle to recognize the person you have become, this fear takes shape often in moments of emotional exhaustion, heavy silence, or long periods of disconnection. Adventure Time expresses this fear through one of the most chilling tools in the Lich's nature, his ability to possess another being and hollow out their identity until nothing meaningful remains. Possession, in the hands of the Lich, is not violent transformation. It is the quiet theft of self. The host is not twisted into a new shape. Instead, the familiar form stands upright, yet the inner presence is gone. The body becomes an echo of its former self, still shaped like the person everyone knows, still holding their memories inside its mind, but unable to express them. This form of possession reveals emptiness through a deeply unsettling lens. It is not chaos. It is the removal of the individual spark, that once guided the being. The Lich does not take over by force. He replaces intention with void. The most powerful part of this is how calm it appears. When the Lich takes hold of someone, there is no outward storm. The eyes shift in subtle ways. The posture becomes deliberate and slow. The breath steadies into a pattern without emotion. Speech becomes controlled, monotone, and chilling. The words leave the host's mouth with no hesitation, yet with no rhythm or personality. It is as if the inner voice that once drove the character has been erased, leaving only a perfectly still current of thought. This stillness captures the essence of emptiness more clearly than anything else in the story. The loss of self under the Lich's possession is a quiet one. There is no screaming. There is no internal struggle on display. The emptiness fills the host so completely that there is no room for resistance. This is what makes it terrifying, not because it is loud, but because it is silent. This silence reflects the emotional experience of losing one's sense of identity in real life. Many people do not lose themselves through sudden upheaval. Instead, the loss creeps in through long periods of disconnection, through routines that drain the spirit, through wounds that are never spoken aloud, through the slow dimming of personal meaning. A person can look the same, speak the same, live in the same place, yet feel hollow beneath the surface. The Lich's possession mirrors this inner shift, where the outer shape remains intact, while the inner presence grows faint. In the story, the Lich's possession carries an unnerving precision. He uses the host not to imitate life, but to walk through it like a shadow wearing a mask. He speaks in the host's voice, but the cadence is wrong. The expression on the host's face becomes fixed, not as a dramatic display of evil, but as a quiet absence of everything that once filled those features with personality. He does not need to threaten. The emptiness speaks for him. When characters encounter a possessed friend, their reactions reveal the emotional shock of seeing someone present in body but gone in spirit. Finn's instincts sharpen. His voice softens into a mixture of fear and determination. Jake becomes tense and cautious. Princess Bubblegum studies the change with focused dread. They all recognize immediately that something essential has been removed. The person they knew is not inside the body anymore, even though the body stands before them. This recognition speaks to the deep understanding characters have of one another. They do not need explanations. They sense emptiness instinctively. The Lich creates this reaction because his possession does not mimic the host. It replaces them with something blank. That blankness makes the absence impossible to ignore. The quietest element of possession is also the most powerful. The host does not struggle outwardly. The Lich does not rant through their voice. Instead, he speaks with absolute calm. This calmness reveals that he did not simply step inside a living being. He removed the being entirely. There is no conflict because there are no pieces of the host left to fight back. This form of possession suggests a symbolic idea. Emptiness can feel like losing your internal voice. When someone feels lost within themselves, they often describe the sensation of moving through their life without intention. They may complete tasks because they must, speak because they are expected to, and interact with others because they know they should, yet without connection to the experience. This is what makes the Lich's possession so emotionally resonant when viewed symbolically. It captures that sense of automatic existence, where actions continue, but the self behind the actions has faded. The Lich's possession also reveals something about the structure of identity. Identity is not merely a collection of memories. It is the presence of intention, emotion, desire, and connection. When these elements are removed, The outer shape remains, but the core is gone. The Lich understands this intuitively, not as a psychological insight, but as a natural extension of his emptiness. He does not need to break the host. He only needs to remove what gives the host meaning. This reveals his unique perspective on living beings. He sees them as forms filled with unnecessary noise. When he empties them, he returns them to what he considers a natural state, free of the echoes of life. This chilling interpretation of identity contrasts with every creative force in U. Princess Bubblegum builds identity through science and compassion. Marceline shapes identity through music and memory. Finn forms identity through experience and growth. Jake develops identity through connection and intuition. Each of these forces adds something to the world. The Lich removes everything that makes identity possible. His possession also affects the emotional environment around him. Characters who witness it often feel a cold weight settle in their chest because possession reveals a truth about emptiness they cannot ignore. Emptiness spreads. It occupies spaces where meaning once grew. It replaces intention with silence. It moves through the world without leaving breath or warmth behind. Yet the story also reveals that possession is not absolute. Identity can return when the Lich is removed. The spark inside the host does not disappear forever. It becomes buried beneath the weight of his emptiness, but it can rise again. This resilience highlights something important about meaning. Even when identity feels lost, it is not destroyed, it waits. It remains dormant until the emptiness begins to lift. This idea adds emotional depth to the symbolism of possession. People who experience internal emptiness often believe they have lost themselves completely. They feel distant, numb, or quiet inside. Yet identity is not erased. It hides beneath the surface, waiting for warmth, connection, or understanding to help it return. The Lich represents the darkest version of emptiness, yet the story shows that even this emptiness cannot permanently destroy the spark of self when the world around the host continues to generate meaning. Possession also emphasizes the contrast between the Lich and the living beings he encounters. He is a creature without identity. He is a presence without origin or desire. He moves through life without forming attachments or memories. When he possesses a host, he temporarily inhabits a form that once held meaning, but he does not absorb that meaning. He carries his emptiness into the vessel, leaving the vessel hollow rather than shaped by his presence. This reveals something fundamental about the Lich. He cannot create meaning, not even for himself. He cannot borrow identity. He cannot share perspectives. He can only empty whatever he touches. This limitation defines him more deeply than his power. It shows that his emptiness is not simply a lack. It is a barrier that prevents him from ever understanding what life truly is. The stillness of a possessed host also highlights the emotional cost of losing contact with your inner self. The host becomes distant. Their movements lack intention. Their presence feels heavier and colder. This mirrors the sensation many people describe when they feel emotionally disconnected from their own life. They continue to function, yet feel far from their own actions. The Lich's possession externalizes this internal experience, making it visible, tangible, and undeniable. In the end, possession under the Lich is not an act of control, it is an act of removal. It reveals the emptiness inside him by demonstrating how quickly he can pull the meaning out of someone else. It shows the fragility of identity, but also its resilience, since the host can return after he is expelled. It shows how emptiness can live quietly inside a person without announcing itself. and it shows why the characters in Ooh fight so fiercely to hold on to their selves, their memories, and their inner warmth. Possession is the clearest mirror that reflects the Lich's nature. He does not twist the world, he hollows it. He does not shout over a person's voice, he silences it. He does not erase the shape, he erases the spark. Understanding this reveals a deeper truth about emptiness. Emptiness does not need to destroy, it only needs to replace meaning with silence. There are voices in Ooh that carry warmth before the words even take shape. Finn speaks with an openness that rises naturally from his heart. Jake's voice settles into a room like soft sunlight, relaxed and comforting. Princess Bubblegum's voice carries a quiet determination, filled with intention and thought. Marceline sings with layers of history drifting beneath every note. Even small characters speak with tones shaped by hope, fear, curiosity, or joy. In Ooh, voices carry emotional fingerprints. They reveal who a character is, long before anyone stops to think about their meaning. Then there is the Lich. His voice is something entirely different. It is not raised, strained, or sharpened. His voice feels like a place where wind has stopped moving. There is no rush inside it, no pull toward a feeling, no tremor from inner conflict. It slides into the air with absolute stillness, as if the sound itself is tired of existing. Every word carries the weight of something ancient, but not wise, not knowing, simply old in the way deserts are old, vast stretches of silence with no life to disturb them. When analysing emptiness through the Lich, his voice becomes one of the clearest indicators of what he truly represents. Many villains announce themselves with loud declarations, rapid speech, or tones filled with emotion. The Lich relies on none of these tools. His voice does not rise or fall. It stays level, steady, and cold, as if even the act of speaking is performed with the least possible amount of effort. This minimalism reveals his nature more clearly than any monologue he delivers. He does not speak to communicate emotion. He speaks to state inevitability. This steadiness is unsettling because it suggests a complete absence of inner movement. People naturally adjust their voices based on shifting thoughts and feelings. Even the quietest speakers show subtle changes. They pause, they breathe, they waver when uncertain, and strengthen when determined. The Lich does none of this. His voice remains the same in every situation. It does not respond to threat or opportunity. It does not carry frustration, pride, curiosity, or humour. It exists without personality, like a dull echo travelling through an abandoned cavern. This flattening of tone captures his emptiness better than any other trait. When someone speaks without emotional shift, it suggests there is no inner fire. The Lich does not hide his emotions. He does not suppress them. He simply does not have any. His voice reveals that his mind contains no desire, no conflict, no longing. Everything he says is spoken with a certainty that comes from having no internal debate. Empty minds do not waver. They do not question. They do not struggle. They simply follow the quiet path they already exist on. People often associate a monotone voice with boredom or fatigue, but the Lich's voice does not sound bored. It sounds deliberate, as if each word is shaped by a force that has no interest in the concept of communication. He speaks because speaking is a necessary part of movement in the world. It is a tool, not a channel for emotion. His tone contains no urgency, because urgency requires caring about the outcome. The Lich does not care, not in the emotional sense. His purpose does not need care. It is carried forward by emptiness, not passion. This is what makes his words so heavy. They do not feel like threats. they do not feel like warnings. They feel like statements of fact from something that sees the end of all things as natural. When he says that silence is the destiny of life, he does not sound angry or victorious. He sounds like someone describing the colour of a rock or the shape of a shadow. There is no feeling behind the thought, only the thought itself. This lack of emotion in his voice highlights the contrast between him and the living beings of U. Finn raises his voice when he feels fear or excitement. Jake stretches his tone into jokes or gentle reassurances. Princess Bubblegum uses sharpness or softness depending on the seriousness of her thoughts. Marceline's voice trembles with memories she has not fully healed from. Even the Ice King, chaotic and confused, speaks in tones shaped by longing and loneliness. The Lich stands apart from all of them because his voice never changes. It has no personal history behind it, no emotional currents shaping the way he speaks, no moment of vulnerability that slips through. It makes him feel not alive, but present in a different way, like a phenomenon, not a person. This phenomenon is unsettling because people expect voices to reflect inner life. When a voice does not reflect anything, it feels unnatural. This unnatural stillness reflects a deeper emotional metaphor. When someone experiences true emotional emptiness, they sometimes speak in tones that feel distant even to themselves. Their voice does not match situations because the internal temperature no longer rises or falls in response to experience. They may describe events with flatness, not because they want to sound detached, but because their inner world has quieted. In this way, the Lich's voice mirrors the internal silence people sometimes carry. It captures the sensation of speaking while feeling disconnected, the sense that words are leaving the mouth without coming from a meaningful place inside. His voice is the sound of emptiness given form. His stillness has another dimension. It reveals how he interacts with time. Characters in U speak with urgency when events matter to them. Time presses on them. They want to protect, escape, change, or influence something. Time shapes their voices because time shapes their emotions. The Lich is timeless in his purpose. His voice carries no urgency because time does not shape him. Whether he acts now or later, his emptiness remains the same. He does not rush because he does not fear anything slipping away from him. Fear requires attachment, and he has none. This detachment can be seen when he confronts heroes. Finn might shout or breathe heavily. Jake might tremble or tense. Even Princess Bubblegum, always composed, shows changes in her tone when the Lich appears. The Lich, however, speaks with the same calm in all circumstances. His voice does not become sharper when challenged. It does not become softer when restrained. It remains completely still, as if trapped in a single moment that repeats itself endlessly. This suggests that he does not speak for the sake of expressing himself. He speaks to fulfill the function of existence. His words are tools of clarity, not expressions of intention. When he addresses others, he is not trying to convince them. He is not trying to intimidate them. He is simply stating the principle of his nature. This gives his lines a chilling simplicity. They are not dramatic, they are final. The emotional impact of his voice becomes greatest when compared to the voices he temporarily inhabits during possession. When the Lich uses someone else's body, the original voice remains, yet the tone changes. The personality vanishes. The rhythm becomes steady and controlled. It is the same calm, the same emptiness, wearing a new shape. This reveals that his voice is not tied to a specific form. It is tied to his inner emptiness. No matter which body he uses, the stillness follows. It cannot be shaken loose because it is who he is. This shows that a voice is not simply a sound, it is an expression of inner life. The Lich's voice contains no life, so it cannot change. Its consistency becomes one of his defining traits, more revealing than his appearance, his magic, or his immortality. To hear him speak is to understand immediately that something essential is missing, something that should be there in living beings, something that cannot be faked or disguised. The stillness in his voice also affects the emotional environment around him. Characters grow quiet when he speaks, not because he silences them directly, but because his lack of emotion creates a vacuum. Their voices feel fragile beside his stillness. Their words feel temporary beside the cold permanence of his tone. This vacuum reveals how emptiness can influence a room. It does not need to overpower. It simply needs to remain still long enough that everything else begins to quiet in response. Yet the story also shows that stillness is not stronger than life. His voice may be steady, but the voices of others carry change. They carry history, hope, fear, love, and curiosity. Each of these forces creates movement. Each movement produces echoes that the Lich cannot understand. He speaks with stillness because he has no inner spark, but characters speak with shifting tones because they carry meaning inside them. Their voices grow, falter, rise, break, laugh, cry, and evolve. This evolution is something he cannot participate in. Through this contrast, the Lich's voice becomes a reminder of the value of inner life. Voices matter because they change. They matter because they reflect emotion. They matter because they are shaped by memory and shaped by hope. His stillness reveals the quiet danger of losing that movement inside yourself, and his emptiness becomes a mirror that shows what it looks like when the inner world becomes silent. The sound of his voice reminds the audience of a truth that runs quietly through the story. Emptiness does not shout. It speaks slowly. It speaks steadily. It speaks without warmth. It speaks without change. His voice is the sound of a heart that never beat. There is a unique stillness that appears when time no longer shapes a being. Most creatures grow, shift, learn, and transform because time pushes them forward. They make choices because they fear consequences. They hold memories because they know moments will never return. They change because they understand that the world will not wait for them. Time creates pressure. It creates meaning. It creates the sense that life matters precisely because it can end. The Lich exists outside this structure. His existence is not shaped by the passing of seasons or the movement of days. He does not age. He does not tire. He does not heal because nothing wounds him in the emotional sense. There is nothing inside him that can be lost, so there is nothing inside him that time can alter. His deathlessness forms the core of his detachment, not in a dramatic or rebellious way, but in a quiet and ancient one. He is not defying time. He simply does not participate in it. To understand emptiness through the Lich, his immortality offers a profound window into the nature of emotional stillness. For most beings, change is unavoidable. Time forces growth. Time forces reconsideration. Time forces the heart to soften or harden. For the Lich, time holds no influence. This lack of movement reveals why he feels so empty. Emotion requires movement. Identity requires growth. Connection requires the awareness that moments are fragile. The Lich is untouched by fragility. His purpose does not waver because he has no inner life to influence it. This detachment can be felt in the calm certainty that shapes everything he does. Characters in respond to fear by becoming more alert. They respond to hope by taking action. They respond to uncertainty by trying to understand their surroundings. The Lich responds to nothing in this way. He does not feel tension, loss, or exhilaration. His actions are deliberate, slow, and unchanging, because his mind does not shift. When someone is deathless in this particular way, they become unrooted from the emotional currents that define life. His detachment is not a shield he raised. It is a condition he never shed. He was never tied to the world through emotion. He was never shaped by experience. He exists as a constant, a presence with no beginning or end in the emotional sense. This constant state creates a form of emptiness that is difficult for living beings to comprehend. It is one thing to feel numb for a season, or to drift through moments without feeling present. It is another to exist for countless ages without ever experiencing inner change. The Lich embodies that second state completely. When he interacts with the world, his deathlessness becomes most visible in the way he views life. To him, life is a temporary flicker, something fragile by nature. He does not see its beauty or its complexity. He sees its impermanence. He sees its noise. He sees the movement that he himself does not contain. His detachment from life is so complete that he cannot recognize why living beings fight to preserve themselves. Their fear of death is something he cannot feel. Their love for moments is something he cannot imagine. Their desire to grow is something he cannot understand. This is why he speaks of silence as destiny. Not because he desires to rule over it, but because he sees it as a natural state. Life, to him, is the interruption. Noise interrupting quiet. Colour interrupting stillness. Movement interrupting rest. He believes in the erasure of life because he views life as unnecessary complication. His deathlessness shapes his view of existence so thoroughly that he sees the return to quiet as the world restoring its natural form. This perspective reveals something important about his emptiness. It is not fueled by cynicism. It is not shaped by trauma. It is not the result of a fall or a loss. It is simply who he is. The Lich did not lose emotion. He never held it. He did not lose connection. He never formed it. This absence is not dramatic. It is absolute. His deathlessness removes any need for reflection or growth, so he remains fixed in a state of perfect detachment. Characters sense this instinctively. Finn reacts to the Lich with urgency because Finn's life is shaped by time. He feels fear because he knows life is precious. Jake feels protective because he understands the fragility of the people he loves. Princess Bubblegum studies threats carefully because she understands consequences develop through time. Marceline mourns and remembers because her long life has shaped her. Every character is tied to time in a meaningful way. The Lich does not share this connection. This is why his presence chills the atmosphere around him. It is not simply his evil that disturbs characters. It is the feeling of encountering something that stands fully outside the rhythms of existence. Something that does not age, something that does not heal, something that does not feel. They are looking at the absence of time rather than its product. This absence creates his emotional detachment. Someone who does not age does not fear endings. Someone who does not change does not grow. Someone who does not feel does not attach. Without these elements, identity weakens. Without identity, intention becomes thin and mechanical. The Lich's intention is not rooted in desire, it is rooted in the structure of his being. He empties the world not because he wants it, but because he is it. Emptiness is his function. This functional emptiness offers a unique emotional metaphor. When someone feels emotionally detached, It often comes with a sense of watching life from a distance. They move through moments without feeling anchored to them. They see events unfold, but struggle to internalize them. They act without feeling the presence of their own intention. This kind of detachment can feel timeless. Days pass without meaning. Experiences lose their weight. The inner self feels quiet and small, as if time passes around them, but not through them. The Lich mirrors this feeling in an extreme and fantastical way. His detachment is complete. He cannot be moved because there is nothing inside him capable of movement. He cannot be changed because he does not exist inside time. His eternal stillness becomes a symbol for the deepest form of emotional detachment, where the world continues to shift, but the inner landscape remains barren. Even his defeats carry this stillness. When he is frozen, trapped, or forced into another form, he does not crumble emotionally. He does not despair. He does not rage. His eyes remain cold. His voice remains steady. His purpose remains unaffected. He does not resist the stasis, because stasis is simply another state of stillness. His emptiness survives imprisonment, because emptiness is not threatened by confinement. It is already confined within itself. This reveals why he can exist in multiple universes without becoming different. Finn changes across timelines, Jake changes, even alternate versions of Princess Bubblegum change. Their surroundings shape them. Their experiences reshape their perspectives. Their time creates their identity. The Lich, on the other hand, appears with the same inner silence in every world. Farm world, the standard timeline, future possibilities, alternate realities, each contains him unchanged. His form might shift, but his emptiness does not. This consistency reveals that his relationship to time is fundamentally different from every living being. He has no before or after in the emotional sense. His existence is one long moment stretched across countless ages. Living beings change because they experience new things. The Lich does not experience anything. Events happen around him, but nothing happens inside him. Without inner movement, time cannot affect him. This gives his detachment a profound philosophical weight. He becomes a symbol of what remains when time loses its power to shape a being. He shows what existence looks like when growth is no longer possible, when purpose becomes fixed, when identity becomes static. His deathlessness is the quiet removal of possibility. Without possibility, emptiness becomes total. This totality is what characters instinctively fight against. They are fighting for time. They are fighting for change. They are fighting for the ability to grow, to love, to fail, to heal, to remember, and to forget. Life is defined by movement, and movement is defined by time. When the Lich enters the world, he represents the end of that movement. He represents a final stillness. Yet the story also shows that this stillness is fragile in its own way. The world around him continues to change. Characters continue to adapt. Emotions continue to shift. Time continues to move, and in doing so, it challenges the static nature of his emptiness. Life pushes back, not by matching his stillness, but by continuing to grow. This growth may be small, but it is often enough to disrupt the detachment he brings. In the end, the Lich's deathlessness reveals the deepest form of emptiness. It is the emptiness that appears when time cannot enter. It is the emptiness that arises when the self does not change. It is the quiet of a mind that never feels pressure, never feels urgency, and never feels the weight of existence. His detachment is complete, yet it is through this completeness that the story shows how precious emotional movement truly is. There is something profoundly revealing about watching a character appear in multiple worlds. Most beings change when placed in different environments. They absorb new influences. They develop different histories. Their personalities shift in response to the people around them. Even when their core traits remain recognizable, alternate timelines shape them into varied reflections of themselves. In Adventure Time, almost every character behaves differently when the world around them changes. Finn becomes hardened in one universe and hopeful in another. Jake becomes cautious in one version of the world and carefree in another. Princess Bubblegum becomes more rigid or more compassionate depending on the path she follows. Each character is shaped by their timeline because their identities are woven into the fabric of the worlds they inhabit. The Lich is the exception. His nature remains the same no matter where he stands. Different versions of the world do not alter him. Different histories do not influence him. Different universal conditions do not soften or sharpen him. He appears in each reality as if moulded from the same untouched silence. He becomes a point of stillness across timelines, a single thread of emptiness weaving through realities that otherwise shift dramatically with every divergence. This consistency reveals an important truth about emptiness. When a being's inner world holds no life, no emotion, no growth, and no connection, external circumstances cannot shape them. The Lich is not influenced by the environment because he contains nothing inside that can respond to the environment. He does not learn from experience. He does not adapt. He does not change his methods because he sees no difference between worlds. To him, every universe is simply another location awaiting the same quiet end. This is why his presence across alternate realities feels so heavy. It suggests that emptiness is not confined by circumstance. It exists independently of surroundings. Someone who carries emptiness inside them often feels it no matter where they go. New experiences do not immediately remove it. New environments do not replace it. It follows with the same quiet persistence because it lives within the self rather than outside it. The Lich embodies this truth in a cosmic form. His void is not tied to any single timeline. It travels with him because it is him. In the main continuity, he stands as a presence that drains life and inspiration. In another timeline, he appears as the frozen remnant of a world already ravaged by his influence. In yet another, he arrives as a possibility, a whisper of what could happen if certain events unfold. Despite these differences, his core remains unchanged. His emptiness carries the same cold certainty, the same lack of emotion, the same quiet hunger for silence. What makes this especially striking is how sharply it contrasts the behaviour of other characters. Finn shifts dramatically between timelines. Farmworld Finn becomes cautious, burdened by responsibility, shaped by a life of scarcity and survival. The Finn of the main timeline grows through friendship, adventure, loss, curiosity, and hope. Each version contains similarities, yet neither is identical to the other. He is sensitive to his environment because he is alive. His heart responds to the world. He evolves because life forces him to. Jake mirrors this adaptability. Princess Bubblegum evolves too, shaped by her responsibilities, relationships, and mistakes. Through these changes, the show highlights the relationship between identity and experience. Experiences shape living beings. They push growth. They reveal new desires. They create emotional complexity. They add warmth to the inner world, or sometimes remove it in painful ways. But whether someone becomes stronger or more fragile, more closed or more open, they still change. They respond. They are moved by the emotional weather of their surroundings. The Lich does not respond. He does not contain the capacity to be moved. His emptiness is not situational. It is fundamental. This is why alternate universes reveal more about him than any single reality could. They show that his emptiness is not the result of one moment, one history, one choice, or one mistake. It is his nature across all versions of existence. He brings the same void to each world he touches, because nothing inside him allows for variation. This consistency can feel haunting when you look closely at it. It suggests that even in a multiverse where everything can diverge endlessly, emptiness remains identical. The Finns of different worlds are distinguishable. The Princess Bubblegums are distinguishable. Even versions of Jake, who share similar qualities, become different in subtle ways. Yet every Lich, whether frozen in one timeline, rising in another, or lurking in the background of a possibility, feels the same. This sameness reveals how total his detachment is. His emptiness is so complete that even the fabric of universes cannot influence it. Usually, alternate realities reveal what could have been. They show how people might have acted if circumstances were different. They reveal potential futures and lost possibilities. With the Lich, there is no such exploration. He contains no alternate potential. He contains no hidden layers. His emptiness leaves no room for divergence. This creates an interesting emotional parallel. When people feel empty for long periods, they often describe themselves as feeling the same everywhere they go. New places do not change them. New experiences do not stir anything. They move through different environments with the same quiet numbness, not because the environments are similar, but because something inside them remains unmoved. The Lich represents this sense of internal sameness to an extreme. His emptiness is so complete that even entirely different universes feel the same to him. This connection becomes clearer when examining the behavior of the farm world Lich. Frozen yet alive, silent yet conscious, he embodies emptiness, caught in a still moment. His form might differ, his imprisonment might differ, but the core is identical. His intentions remain unchanged, his tone remains cold, his presence remains heavy. It is as if universes can alter everything except the essence of his being. This tells us something profound about the nature of emptiness. Emptiness is not always loud. It does not always demand attention. Sometimes it lives like a quiet thread running through every version of a life, showing up regardless of the surroundings. When someone carries emptiness inside them, they may hope that changing their environment will change the feeling, only to discover that the feeling persists because it resides within, not outside. The Lich's multiversal stability reflects this truth with unsettling clarity. His presence across realities also highlights a deeper aspect of identity. Most characters grow because their inner selves contain conflict, longing, fear, hope, or desire. These qualities shift in different worlds because they interact with new experiences. Even villains hold emotional textures that shape their behavior differently depending on their circumstances. The Lich's lack of emotional texture removes any possibility of variation. He is not shaped by hope because he contains none. He is not shaped by sorrow because he carries no memories. He is not shaped by longing because he desires nothing except the quiet he already embodies. Without these elements, he becomes a constant across realities. Yet this constancy is not a strength. It exposes something fragile about emptiness. Emptiness cannot change because it lacks the inner material needed for growth. Movement requires emotion. Evolution requires inner conflict. Transformation requires experience. The Lich cannot transform because he contains no spark. His emptiness keeps him fixed in place, unchanging even when everything else shifts around him. He becomes a still point in a sea of variation. Characters who encounter him across universes sense this fixedness. They sense that nothing inside him responds to their presence. They realize that negotiations, emotional appeals, warnings, or logic cannot touch him. They interact not with a person, but with a void wearing the shape of a person. This void appears the same everywhere it goes, because nothing within it interacts with the world. It only absorbs or erases. This is what makes him so unnerving. Even time itself seems unable to change him. Alternate timelines show what might have been for everyone else, but they show only what always is for him. And yet, through this consistency, the story reveals something about the nature of life. The fact that every other character changes across realities exposes their depth. Finn's variations reveal the complexity of his heart. Jake's variations reveal the elasticity of his identity. Princess Bubblegum's variations reveal how her choices shape her. Marceline's variations reveal the weight of her past and how differently she carries it, depending on circumstance. Life produces variation. Emptiness does not. In the end, the Lich's identical nature across alternate worlds reinforces the idea that emptiness is not shaped by environment. It exists regardless of context. It remains steady even when everything else shifts. He becomes the embodiment of an inner silence that cannot be softened by new experiences or altered by time. This sameness is not a symbol of power, it is a symbol of limitation. It shows what it means to have no inner life, no room for growth, and no capacity for connection. Across every universe, the Lich carries the same void, because emptiness, when absolute, cannot become anything else. There are moments in life when time seems to stop, not because the world has become still, but because something within us has gone quiet. A memory can freeze us. A realization can silence us. A loss can suspend us in an emotional space where movement feels impossible. In Adventure Time, one of the clearest visual expressions of this emotional stillness is the farm world timeline, where the Lich exists in a state of absolute paralysis, suspended in ice yet unmistakably present. This version of him reveals something profound about emptiness. It shows what happens when purpose becomes frozen, when a void is locked inside a moment that never changes. Farmworld is a universe shaped by a single divergence, yet that divergence transforms every life. Finn grows up in hardship and isolation. The Mushroom War unfolds differently. Magic takes on new forms. People adapt to the scarcity and danger of a harsher world. Everything in Farmworld reflects the environment that created it. Every character shaped by survival and loss. Yet even in a world filled with changed destinies, one thing remains constant. The Lich inside the ice carries the same emptiness found in every timeline. His body is immobilized, but his nature is not. His emptiness does not fade under cold temperatures. His intent does not dissolve under layers of frozen time. The stillness of his form only emphasizes the stillness already present in his mind. In this frozen state, he appears almost peaceful, as if the absence of movement finally aligns his outer form with his inner emptiness. He looks like a creature carved from silence, preserved in a moment that reflects his nature perfectly. This frozen purpose reveals a unique dimension of emptiness. Most forces weaken when they lose movement. A villain who cannot act becomes less threatening. A character who cannot speak becomes easier to understand. A being locked in place tends to lose power over the world, but the Lich's emptiness does not weaken in stasis. Stasis is simply another expression of his essence. He does not struggle against the ice. He does not pace within it. He does not rage at confinement. He stands as still in ice as he does in the open world, because movement was never a part of his identity. The ice around him becomes a symbolic representation of emotional paralysis. When someone feels empty, their inner world can freeze, their thoughts slow, their reactions quiet, their desires retreat. They may continue to function outwardly, but something inside becomes suspended. They exist within time, yet part of them remains trapped in a moment that does not move forward. The farm world Lich captures this emotional stasis perfectly. His purpose does not evolve because his inner landscape contains no movement to begin with. He remains locked in an unchanging certainty, like a thought frozen before it can grow or soften. What makes this version of him especially haunting is how alive he remains beneath the ice. His eyes retain the same cold intensity. His presence radiates the same quiet malice. Even immobilized, he exerts influence. The ice becomes an imperfect barrier at best, delaying but not removing the danger. This aspect of his existence speaks to a deeper truth about emptiness. Emotional paralysis does not erase the internal void. It only traps it in place. The feeling remains alive beneath the surface, waiting for the environment to shift, waiting for something to crack the ice. The contrast between Farmworld Finn and the frozen Lich deepens this symbolism. Finn in this timeline is shaped by hardship. His identity is forged through responsibility rather than adventure. He works to protect his family. He endures harsh seasons. He adapts to scarcity. He changes because he must. He grows because life forces him to respond. Every choice he makes reflects the influence of time, struggle, and connection. Even when his world is bleak, he carries movement within him. His inner world continues to shift. The Lich carries none of this. Even in a timeline built on scarcity and survival, his emptiness does not change its texture. He is the same quiet void, untouched by the world around him. Farmworld Finn transforms. Farmworld Lich remains exactly what he was. This contrast helps illuminate the emotional message behind emptiness. Life changes people. Experience shapes them. Even suffering transforms them. Emptiness is the state where these forces fail to take root, where no amount of environmental pressure generates internal movement. This static nature reveals something else. The Lich does not dream. He does not imagine. He does not reconsider. His frozen form is not a pause between actions. It is simply another version of stillness. His deathlessness ensures that time cannot erode him, but his emptiness ensures that time cannot deepen him either. He stands in the ice like a concept rather than a being, one that exists without any internal history forming beneath the surface. In a symbolic sense, the ice becomes an extension of him. Ice preserves what it captures, keeping it unchanged. The Lich embodies the same effect. He does not evolve, so the ice does nothing more than reflect what already exists inside him. It does not transform him. It reveals him. He is a still point, surrounded by a world of shifting lives. That world changes. He does not. The ice allows the audience to see this fixedness with greater clarity, because it removes the illusion of movement, leaving only the essence of who he is. When the ice eventually cracks and he awakens, the moment does not carry the dramatic force expected from a villain released after ages of imprisonment. Instead, it feels like the continuation of a thought that had simply been paused. The Lich emerges with the same emptiness held firmly in place, as if the universe had merely lifted a finger from a pressure point that had been holding him still. He does not roar, he does not celebrate. He resumes. This quiet resumption reveals how frozen purpose fits naturally within his identity. His revival demonstrates an important truth about emptiness. When someone experiences deep emotional paralysis, the return to movement does not always feel powerful or dramatic. Instead, it can feel like sliding back into a familiar state, as if nothing changed beneath the frozen surface. The Lich embodies this muted transition. His purpose does not surge with new energy. It continues with the quiet inevitability that defined it long before the ice covered him. Farmworld itself also plays a role in illuminating his emptiness. The environment is drastically different from the main timeline. It lacks the playful structure of the Candy Kingdom, the magical abundance of ooh, and the community found in the Tree Fort. Life in Farmworld is grounded, rough, and often cold. People carry fewer luxuries. The landscape holds less colour. Yet even in this world, emptiness does not grow naturally. Life persists. Families form. People protect what they have. Even in scarcity, warmth appears. Finn cares deeply for his family. His world may be harsh, but his heart remains alive. This demonstrates that the absence of abundance does not create emptiness. Emptiness is not created by hardship, nor is it created by cold weather, nor by lack of magic. Emptiness appears when the inner world loses its spark. The Lich's presence in Farmworld proves this. A world stripped of luxury still holds meaning when people carry hope and love. A world full of dangers still contains possibilities. The Lich stands apart because he carries no spark within him to interact with these elements. He is the same in every environment because emptiness lives inside him, not around him. This universal consistency gives his appearance in Farmworld a symbolic weight. It shows that emptiness, when absolute, survives every variation of circumstance. It does not deepen in hardship. It does not soften in comfort. It remains fixed. His frozen form becomes the clearest expression of a void that does not grow or diminish. At the same time, the Farmworld timeline reveals the quiet strength of life. When Finn accidentally frees the Lich, the world does not surrender immediately to emptiness. Even in a harsh reality, people resist. They fight, they adapt. This resistance shows that life contains movement even when the world is cold. Emptiness may be still, but life is not. This contrast demonstrates that warmth and meaning do not depend on ideal conditions. They depend on the spark inside living beings. The frozen Lich therefore sits at the centre of one of the show's most meaningful contrasts. He is the perfect image of what purposeful emptiness looks like when time cannot shape it. Finn is the perfect image of what life looks like when it must grow despite hardship. One is unchanging, one is constantly adapting, one remains silent, one creates new stories through his actions. This contrast reveals that emptiness, even when frozen in place, remains dangerous precisely because it does not evolve. It cannot be reasoned with, it cannot be softened, it waits. And yet, the world around him continues to change. Finn changes, families adapt, seasons move, even timelines diverge. Life keeps creating movement around the frozen void. This movement is what eventually opposes him. While the Lich stands alone, the world pushes forward. While he carries silence, others carry hope. In the end, the farm world Lich is the clearest representation of purpose without life. He is frozen, but never paused. He is still, but never softened. He is quiet, but never diminished. His emptiness remains intact despite environment, timeline, or circumstance. Through him, the story shows that even when time stops for a moment, the void inside him continues unchanging. Farmworld does not alter him. It only frames him in a different light, revealing that emptiness, once absolute, exists with the same stillness, no matter how the universe shifts around it. Magic in U is not only a tool, it is the pulse beneath the world, the invisible rhythm that lets the strange, the impossible, and the beautiful coexist without tension. It flows through creatures who never question why they glow, stretch, heal, transform, or exist in shapes no natural world would allow. It nourishes forests that whisper, mountains that breathe, oceans that shift colour depending on mood, and kingdoms made of candy, fire, or clouds. It is the invisible force that makes the world feel alive. Magic is not merely power. It is intention. It is movement. It is curiosity. It is the spark that animates the land. Even when someone uses magic irresponsibly, the magic still arises from an inner desire or emotional push. Magic is the expression of life speaking out loud. The Lich sits outside this, not in opposition to magic, but beyond it. He is not the enemy of magic. He is its absence. He is the silence that appears when the rhythm stops. While magic expresses life, the Lich expresses the end of expression. His presence does not fight the mystical forces of the world. It simply removes the inner meaning that animates them. Magic withers beneath him because magic is alive and he is not. To understand emptiness more deeply, it is necessary to examine how magic behaves near him. In the presence of magical beings, his aura does not clash with spells or ignite waves of destructive energy. It simply erases intention. A spell cast near him feels weaker. A charm loses its focus. An enchantment dims. The complex dances of magical energy slow until they resemble tired gestures with no force behind them. It is not that he overpowers magic. It is that he empties it. Magic in U always reveals something about its user. Princess Bubblegum's inventions carry her precision and hope. Marceline's abilities carry her emotions and history. Peppermint Butler's occult talents reflect his hidden depths and unspoken complexity. Even Ice King's magic, chaotic and unstable, reflects the fractured longing inside him. Magic takes shape from inner worlds. The Lich has no inner world, so magic around him has nothing to respond to. Spells lose their direction not because he breaks them, but because they cannot find a point to anchor themselves. Magic needs intention, and he has none to interact with. He stands as a blank space where magic cannot enter. This blankness reveals the emotional dimension of emptiness. When someone feels hollow inside, even things that once sparked excitement or creativity begin to feel distant. The inner world does not respond. Ideas that once flowed easily feel heavy. Actions that once expressed passion become mechanical. The spark dims. Magic in the story mirrors this intimately. It reacts to emptiness the way inspiration reacts to emotional numbness. It quiets. It retreats. It dissolves into something faint, like smoke disappearing into still air. The Lich's relationship to life is even more revealing. He does not hate life. Hatred requires fire, and he contains no fire. He does not envy life. Envy requires desire, and he desires nothing. He does not fear life. Fear requires vulnerability, and he is untouched by vulnerability. Life is simply something he does not recognize as meaningful. To him, life is noise. Life is motion. Life is warmth. These qualities do not resonate inside him. He does not attack life out of passion. He removes it because his nature is the absence of everything life represents. Life in U is playful, messy, unpredictable, and emotionally expressive. It carries rhythms of joy, pain, humour, chaos, hope, anger, and longing. These rhythms define the characters who live within it. Even characters who struggle or hide their emotions still feel something stirring inside. The Lich does not stir. He does not shift. He does not respond. This inability to respond gives him a unique form of strength. Not the strength of power, but the strength of absolute stillness. Where life vibrates with meaning, the Lich remains unmoved. His emptiness is not threatened by magic. It is not softened by kindness. It is not provoked by fear. The internal landscape that shapes his choices is a barren plain where nothing grows. In this sense, he is not a force of destruction, but a force of subtraction. Destruction changes things into something else, even if that something is damaged or reshaped. Subtraction removes things entirely, leaving no imprint behind. The Lich acts as subtraction. He removes life without creating marks. When he impacts the world loses its richness, not its form. This kind of absence is more unsettling than destruction, because it mirrors the emotional hollowing people sometimes feel within themselves. It is possible to go through the motions of a day while feeling like an invisible thread has been pulled from the center of the self. The world still looks the same, but the meaning behind it thins. This sensation is not explosive. It is quiet. It is not a collapse. It is a fading. The Lich's emptiness creates this effect on a cosmic scale. His disconnection from life becomes even clearer when comparing him to beings who are technically immortal or ancient. Characters like Marceline, who has lived for 1,000 years, still carry memories that shape her. They carry scars. They carry love. They carry humour. Over time, these emotions deepen, shift, and evolve. They change her. She feels time even if she does not age physically. The Lich does not feel time because he cannot feel anything. His immortality lacks the emotional contours of long life. It is simply a continuation of the same stillness. Even cosmic entities in U reflect emotion in some form. Prismo expresses warmth and friendship. The cosmic owl embodies solemn mystery. Orgalorg carries desire for power. Life, even at cosmic levels, contains personality. The Lich stands outside this. He is not a cosmic being filled with ancient wisdom. He is not a misunderstood creature with a tragic past. He is a void that predates motives. This reveals a truth about the relationship between magic and life. Magic thrives where meaning thrives. Life expands where emotion expands. The Lich's presence drains, both because meaning and emotion cannot survive inside an absolute void. Even the most powerful magical artifacts respond to intention. The Lich's intention is a flat line. There is no personal story guiding it. No history gives it nuance. No feeling gives it texture. It is the absence of story, history, and feeling. His interactions with magical artifacts highlight this further. When he touches objects that contain purpose or enchantment, they weaken. Their magic becomes pale. Not because he corrupts them with darkness, but because he strips them of the inner meaning that fuels them. Magic cannot shine in a place where the spirit of creation is absent. His emptiness extinguishes not light, but intention. This phenomenon becomes emotionally symbolic. When someone feels empty, things that once carried deep meaning may suddenly feel distant. A beloved song sounds hollow. A familiar place feels foreign. A cherished memory feels like a photograph instead of a living sensation. The world loses its inner spark, not because it changed, but because something inside the person stopped responding. The Lich's emptiness reproduces this exact effect on the world around him. The absence of life inside him also explains why his form is unsettling, even when he stands still. A living creature has subtle signs of life, such as breath, tension in the muscles, flickers in the eyes, or micro-expressions in the face. The Lich has none. When he moves, the motion feels disconnected from the physicality of life. It is precise, intentionless, almost mechanical. When he stands still, he resembles an ancient monument rather than a living enemy. Watching him creates a sensation much like standing near something that should not be awake, something that has no heartbeat, no desire, and no voice of its own. The emptiness where life should be is what creates fear, not the threat of attack. That emptiness breaks the unspoken expectation that living things have inner worlds. He has none. This emptiness becomes even clearer when observing how characters respond to him compared to how they respond to other antagonists. When they face beings like Ice King or Magic Man, their reactions mix fear with compassion or curiosity. Those beings contain inner turmoil. They contain emotion. They contain humanity or something close to it. The Lich contains none of these. The characters sense his lifelessness and instinctively understand that there is nothing to read, nothing to reach, nothing to save. This difference reveals that life is not defined solely by biology or movement. It is defined by inner spark. The Lich lacks this completely, and therefore cannot relate to life on any level. His emptiness is not conflict, it is absence. In the end, the relationship between the Lich, magic, and life reveals the broader philosophy at the heart of emptiness. Magic shows what happens when intention becomes creation. Life shows what happens when emotion becomes movement. The Lich shows what happens when nothing inside responds to anything outside. He is the stillness that remains when spark, rhythm, warmth, and thought are removed. His emptiness is not a dramatic force. It is the softest possible removal of meaning. It is the quiet end of intention. It is the absence of life in its purest form. There is a kind of fear that does not come from loud threats or violent storms. It does not come from the presence of a monster rushing forward or a danger that can be seen clearly. This fear is quieter, heavier, and more complex. It emerges when someone senses the possibility that meaning might slip away. It appears when they imagine the world without their voice, their memory, their presence. It grows when they begin to worry not about pain, but about the absence of feeling. This fear is the fear of nothingness, the quiet dread that arises when a person imagines the hollow space where life used to be. Adventure Time gives this fear a form. It gives it a voice that remains calm and steady. It gives it a shape that does not change across worlds. It gives it a purpose that does not waver. The Lich becomes the embodiment of that fear. He is not the fear itself, but the presence that awakens it. He does not shout or threaten. He simply stands in silence. And that silence reminds every living being of the void that exists beyond life and meaning. The Lich does not experience fear. He does not understand it. He does not respond to it, because fear requires the recognition of something that can be lost. He contains nothing that can be lost, so fear cannot appear within him. Yet his presence triggers fear in others because he reveals something about the nature of existence. He shows what life looks like without emotion. He shows what identity looks like without memory. He shows what being looks like without movement. His emptiness acts as a mirror that reflects the deepest human anxiety, the fear that everything inside could someday dissolve. When Finn first encounters him, the fear is not rooted in the possibility of pain. It is rooted in the overwhelming sense that something stands before him that contains absolutely no life. Finn's instinctive reaction reflects a truth that runs through the entire show. People fear nothingness not because it is violent, but because it is absolute. They fear the loss of what makes them who they are. They fear the disappearance of their inner world. They fear the collapse of meaning. The Lich's ability to awaken this fear reveals something important about emptiness. Emptiness is not frightening because it is powerful. It is frightening because it is indifferent. When someone confronts a creature filled with anger, they can at least understand the emotion. When someone confronts a creature filled with sorrow, they can empathize. When someone confronts a creature filled with desire, they can predict its behavior. But when someone confronts a void, they face something that offers no emotional entry point. There is nothing to read, nothing to connect with, nothing to anticipate. This absence creates fear because the human mind seeks patterns, it seeks feeling, it seeks intention. The Lich contains none of these. His emptiness becomes unsettling because it represents the collapse of everything people use to make sense of the world. It is the absence of character, the absence of desire, the absence of inner life. He is a figure who stands exactly where emotion should be and replaces it with quiet. That quiet does not threaten in a traditional sense. It threatens by reminding people that existence can disappear without sound. It reminds them that lives fade, memories blur, and connections weaken. It reminds them that stories, no matter how meaningful, can end in silence. Characters in OO carry their own fears of this silence, even if they never speak them aloud. Jake fears losing his family. Princess Bubblegum fears losing her people. Marceline fears losing the memories that connect her to the past. Finn fears losing the meaning he has worked so hard to understand. These fears are natural and human. The Lich amplifies them not through action, but through presence. Standing near him feels like standing near the possibility that all of these connections could disappear. The characters' reactions reveal something important. They instinctively fight to hold on to the things that matter. They resist him because resisting emptiness is a natural response to being alive. Life pushes against the void, not because the void is evil, but because life seeks continuation. The fear of nothingness also appears in the way characters speak around him. Even the brave become quieter. Their voices tighten. Their words become careful. This change occurs not because they are intimidated, but because they feel the weight of what he represents. They sense the presence of something that does not break, does not shift, and does not acknowledge the emotional fabric of existence. The Lich exposes the fear that life is fragile, and that the inner spark can be extinguished. Yet the story does not use this fear to suggest hopelessness. Instead, it uses it to highlight the importance of connection. When characters feel fear around the Lich, they cling more tightly to each other. Finn reaches for Jake. Jake protects Finn. Princess Bubblegum prepares plans to defend her kingdom. Even Ice King, confused and chaotic, becomes more serious when confronted with the Lich. They all respond by moving closer to the people and ideas that give their lives meaning. This is the emotional truth embedded in this chapter. The fear of nothingness does not only create anxiety, it also reveals what people value. When someone realizes how hollow the world can become, they become more aware of the warmth that fills their life. The Lich, through his emptiness, forces characters to see the beauty in existence, not by offering contrast intentionally, but by his simple presence. His calm voice adds to this effect. It carries no inflection, no urgency, no passion. It does not convey threat because he does not feel threatened. It does not convey ambition because he does not dream. It simply conveys inevitability. When he speaks, he reminds living beings that silence is always waiting, not as a punishment, but as a state of existence that predates them. The fear this creates is not fear of harm. It is fear of dissolution. This emotional fear appears in real life as well. People sometimes worry that their sense of self will weaken. They fear losing the vitality that once helped them grow. They fear drifting into a state where nothing seems to matter. They fear waking up one day and feeling the absence of joy or connection. These fears often arise quietly, in soft moments of reflection, or in long periods of emotional exhaustion. The Lich's presence in the story symbolizes that fear without becoming a metaphor or allegory directly. His emptiness naturally evokes it. Yet the series also shows that this fear can inspire action. Characters do not freeze when facing him. They respond, they create plans, they fight, they hope, they reach for each other. This shows that the fear of nothingness can be a catalyst for meaning. People cling to warmth because they know what it feels like to face cold. They hold on to each other because they know what it feels like to stand near a void. The Lich highlights that tension. His emptiness symbolizes what happens when meaning disappears completely. Characters reveal what happens when meaning persists. The fear he awakens becomes an emotional mirror, not a source of despair, but a recognition of what life must protect. There is another subtle layer to this dynamic. The Lich does not evolve because he has no fear. Fear creates movement. Fear makes people reflect. Fear makes them adapt. Fear forces them to confront the things they run from. Without fear, the Lich remains fixed. His emptiness stays exactly the same because there is no internal conflict to shape him. This immobility reveals that fear, though uncomfortable, is part of what keeps life moving. It is part of what makes growth possible. It is part of what keeps stories alive. Through the Lich, the story shows that fear itself contains meaning. The fear of nothingness proves that the inner world is full. If someone did not care, they would not fear losing what they have. If someone did not love, they would not fear absence. If someone did not value their own story, they would not fear the silent end of it. The Lich cannot feel this fear, and this inability reveals the completeness of his emptiness. He contains nothing that can be lost. He carries nothing that he wants to protect. He stands as a reminder of what it looks like when meaning vanishes entirely. The characters, in contrast, show what it looks like to fight for meaning even when the void stands directly before them. In the end, the Lich and the fear of nothingness form a single idea. He is the shape of the void. The fear is the recognition of what could be lost. Through him, the story reveals that emptiness is not frightening because it is violent, but because it reminds us how precious life is. His presence shows how fragile meaning can be, while the characters' reactions show how fiercely people hold on to it. The fear of nothingness is not the fear of the Lich. It is the fear of becoming what he already is. There is a quiet at the edge of existence that feels different from ordinary silence. Ordinary silence carries the possibility of sound. It has pauses where life might speak again. It has breath beneath it. It has room for movement. But the quiet at the end of all things is heavier. It is a silence without expectation, without memory, without waiting. It is not the absence of noise. It is the absence of the possibility of noise. It is the stillness that remains when nothing living is left to break it. This is the stillness the Lich seeks, not through anger or desperation, but because it reflects his nature completely. He embodies the silence that lies beyond the boundaries of life. He does not speak of endings with excitement. He does not approach the end of all things with victory. He simply moves towards stillness because the world he imagines is the same as the world inside him. It contains no motion, no warmth, no sound, and no story. To understand emptiness through the Lich, one must understand the difference between silence and stillness. Silence is the absence of sound. Stillness is the absence of motion. But the Lich represents something deeper than either of these. He represents the absence of possibility. In his world, nothing moves, not because movement is suppressed, but because movement does not exist. Nothing grows, not because growth is forbidden, but because the idea of growth does not hold meaning. The end he seeks is not an event, it is a state. This state contrasts with the living world of where everything moves forward even in confusion. Trees grow unevenly, rivers change shape, emotions shift, kingdoms rise and fall, characters stumble, learn, fall apart, reconnect, and try again. Life in is full of irregular motion. Even when the world is threatened, time continues to press forward. The Lich stands apart from this current because his nature is not shaped by time. He does not move towards stillness. He exists in it. The stillness at the end of all things is simply his inner world projected outward. This projection becomes clearest in moments when he nearly achieves victory. The atmosphere shifts long before any destruction begins. There is a heaviness in the air, as though the world senses something draining its momentum. Colours feel muted, movements slow, characters grow quieter. It is as if the world steps closer to a kind of sleep from which it cannot awaken. This transition does not feel like a violent end. It feels like a slow settling. The Lich does not bring storms. He brings a lull in the rhythm of existence. In many stories, the end of all things is portrayed with dramatic force. Explosions tear through worlds. Fire consumes landscapes. The heavens collapse. The ground shakes. But the Lich's vision for the end is not one of destruction. It is one of removal. He does not imagine fire. He imagines quiet plains where nothing moves, where the sky holds no light, and where the world becomes a single unbroken moment without memory. This makes his presence emotionally symbolic. People sometimes experience moments when their inner world feels like it has reached a quiet end. Not death, but the end of feeling. Not collapse, but the stillness that follows intense exhaustion or long periods of numbness. The inner landscape loses its rhythm. The spark inside feels dim. The world continues to move, but they feel as if they have stepped out of the flow of life. The Lich embodies this sensation in a form that transforms it into something larger and more cosmic. His stillness becomes a metaphor for emotional stasis. The kind of stasis where someone feels separated from the forward momentum of life, where goals feel distant, where time passes without leaving marks, where the days blend into each other quietly. The Lich expresses this state perfectly because he contains no internal movement. He stands at the end of all things because he stands outside the movement of life entirely. Yet the story also reveals that stillness, when taken to an absolute, becomes fragile. It lacks adaptability. It lacks new energy. It lacks the variety that gives life its resilience. The Lich's stillness cannot bend. It cannot shift. It cannot adjust. This rigidity is what allows characters to challenge him. Their movement interrupts his stillness. Their emotions disrupt his quiet. Their connections create ripples that his emptiness cannot fully absorb. This dynamic shows that the end of all things, as imagined by the Lich, is not a state the world naturally moves toward. It is a state imposed by something that stands apart from the world. Life naturally leans toward growth, even after destruction. Communities rebuild, friends reconnect, nature regrows. People learn, stories continue. The world is full of forces that pull toward motion. The Lich is a single force that pulls toward stillness. His purpose is the absence of purpose. This absence can be seen in the way he speaks about the destiny of life. He does not present the end as something catastrophic. He describes it as something inevitable, not because he expects triumph, but because he imagines the end as the normal state of existence. He speaks like someone explaining a natural law. In his mind, life is the anomaly. Silence is the baseline. This perspective reveals that he does not seek victory. He seeks equilibrium with his own emptiness. Characters resist him because they sense that accepting his stillness would mean abandoning everything they have built. They fight to keep the rhythm of life moving, even if the movement is imperfect. They fight because motion holds possibility, while stillness holds none. Their resistance does not come from arrogance or pride. It comes from instinct. Living beings instinctively cling to movement because movement is the expression of existence. The Lich does not hate movement. He simply does not have the inner life to understand it. His stillness is not a desire, it is a condition. He does not push the world toward the end because he seeks satisfaction. He pushes it because that is the only direction he can understand. When he looks at life, he sees only temporary flashes of motion that interrupt the quiet he embodies. Removing them feels natural to him. This difference between life's movement and the Lich's stillness highlights a deeper emotional truth. People sometimes fear being stuck in a moment emotionally, unable to move forward. But the story shows that even in moments of long emotional stillness, the capacity for movement remains. Characters return from grief, rebuild lost connections, and rediscover their spark. Their movement may be slow, but it persists. Life continues because something inside living beings carries a faint rhythm that cannot be fully extinguished. The Lich's stillness reveals the opposite. His inner landscape is a place where nothing can start again. No new spark can form. No new idea can grow. His emptiness shows what it looks like when the rhythm stops permanently. This is why characters feel dread when they face him. They sense that his stillness is not rest, it is erasure. It is the flattening of time, the end of possibility, the quiet that removes every echo. Yet even in his most powerful moments, the story shows that life can resist the end. Not through overwhelming force, but through the simple act of continuing. Finn refuses to stop moving. Jake refuses to stop protecting. Princess Bubblegum refuses to stop planning. Marceline refuses to stop feeling. Their movement disrupts the stillness the Lich embodies. Their lives create ripples that break the surface of his quiet. This shows that the end of all things, as the Lich imagines it, cannot fully take shape as long as the faintest spark of life remains. Stillness cannot swallow movement if movement keeps generating new patterns. The Lich cannot erase life entirely because life continues to renew itself in ways his emptiness cannot anticipate. In the end, the Lich's stillness, at the end of all things, reveals the nature of emptiness at its most complete. It is the final quiet that exists when nothing moves, nothing breathes, and nothing can begin anew. It is not destruction. It is the absence that follows after all things fade. His stillness stands in contrast to the living world, which continues to push forward through uncertainty, connection, pain, and hope. The Lich does not understand why life resists him. He cannot feel the things that make life cling to motion. He cannot sense the meaning that grows from relationships. He cannot perceive the spark that drives growth. But the story shows that stillness, no matter how deep, cannot erase movement entirely. Life carries its own momentum. The Lich carries none. Through him, the show reveals that the end of all things is not something to fear because of pain. It is something to fear because of the possibility that the inner spark could go quiet. And through the resistance of the characters, it reveals that the spark can always be protected, even in the presence of absolute stillness. Life in U is not defined by strength or certainty. It is defined by resistance. Even the gentlest characters push back against forces that threaten meaning. They do not always understand why. They do not always have a plan. They act because something inside them refuses to allow the world to fall silent. This resistance appears again and again throughout the series, shaping kingdoms, friendships, and the emotional arcs of characters who often feel small in the face of cosmic danger. The Lich does not comprehend resistance. He does not understand why life pushes back, because to him, pushing back serves no purpose. The world he envisions contains no struggle, no conflict, no desire for continuation. He does not see the need to protect anything, because he does not believe anything possesses value. Life's instinctive resistance confuses him, not because he notices it, but because it does not fit his understanding of existence. He presents the end of all things as natural, yet living beings respond as if he has threatened their essence. To understand emptiness through the Lich, it is necessary to examine why life resists him so consistently and so instinctively. The resistance is not rooted in hatred. It is not rooted in desire for victory or revenge. It rises from the same place that breath rises. It is an automatic reaction, like pulling away from cold, like reaching toward warmth, like seeking the company of others when loneliness grows heavy. Life pushes back because it cannot exist without movement, and the Lich is the end of movement. This instinct appears most clearly in Finn. Finn does not fight the Lich because he sees himself as a hero. He fights because something inside him ignites whenever the void draws near. He feels the weight of the Lich's emptiness, and his heart responds by pushing forward. Finn is often impulsive, emotional, hopeful, and fragile. These qualities make him vulnerable, but they also make him alive. When the Lich's stillness threatens to settle over the world, Finn's movement becomes reflexive. He steps into danger not because he understands the cosmic stakes, but because standing still feels impossible. Jake's resistance takes a different shape. Jake is laid back, relaxed, and often satisfied with the simple pleasures of life. He does not seek conflict, he does not seek grand purpose. Yet when the Lich appears, Jake becomes serious. His warmth sharpens into focus. His instincts push him to protect, to move, to intervene. The peaceful flow he usually carries shifts into determination because he senses the absence the Lich brings. Jake fights not through grand declarations, but through loyalty. His resistance comes from the small, quiet truth that he refuses to lose the world that gives him joy. Princess Bubblegum represents another form of resistance. Her logic and precision guide her actions. She prepares, plans, analyzes, and responds through reason. Yet even she cannot fully articulate why she resists the Lich with such intensity. She studies threats carefully, but with the Lich, study offers little insight. His emptiness leaves nothing to examine. Still, she persists. She builds defenses. She strategies endlessly. She pushes back through the power of intention, fueled not by emotion, but by the knowledge that her people's lives carry meaning. Marceline resists in a way shaped by history. She knows what loss feels like. She knows what it means for the world to fall apart. Her past has taught her how fragile life can be and how easily meaning can slip away. When the Lich appears, her resistance emerges from countless memories that hold emotional weight. Those memories make her reluctant to allow stillness to replace the noise of the world. She stands against the Lich not because she fears him, but because she remembers what it feels like when warmth disappears. Even Ice King, wrapped in confusion and loneliness, pushes back against the Lich in his own way. He may not understand the cosmic implications, but he recognizes danger with an instinct deeper than thought. Despite his scattered mind, some part of him remembers what loss feels like. Some part of him retains a spark of the man he once was. That spark resists the Lich, not with strategy, but with a faint echo of grief and longing. Even the fragments of his identity push against the void. This universal resistance reveals something fundamental about life. Life contains struggle by nature. It pushes upward through soil. It grows in places it should not. It rebuilds after destruction. It seeks warmth. It seeks connection. The Lich's stillness stands against this nature. His presence interrupts the rhythm that life depends on. Characters feel that interruption instinctively, even before they understand it. Their bodies tighten, their breath shortens. Their hearts move faster, not because they fear violence, but because they fear the ending of motion. This fear does not feel like panic. It feels like the sensation of losing balance. Life pushes back because losing movement is the same as losing being. The Lich represents the end of becoming, and becoming is what life does. Becoming stronger, wiser, braver, kinder, or even more flawed. Life moves through cycles because cycles create meaning. The Lich's void contains no cycles. It contains no possibility. It contains nothing to rise from or return to. The instinct to resist him reflects a deeper emotional truth. People resist emptiness because emptiness threatens their inner world. When someone feels their spark dimming, they look for connection. When meaning begins to fade, they search for something to anchor themselves. When loneliness grows, they reach for others. These impulses mirror the characters who push back against the Lich. Their resistance is not heroic, it is natural. It is the expression of being alive. This natural resistance becomes clearer through the way characters unite. The Lich stands alone, contained entirely within himself. Every other character stands with others. Even characters who prefer solitude find themselves drawn into connection when the void approaches. Finn finds Jake, Jake finds Finn, Princess Bubblegum finds her people. Marceline finds her friends. Even disconnected beings sense the need to lean into each other's presence. The story highlights that life does not push back alone. Life pushes back collectively. The Lich's emptiness isolates him, but the world's response gathers warmth through unity. Characters do not resist because they are powerful. They resist because they are connected. Their bonds generate ripples of movement that the void cannot anticipate. Each friendship, each memory, each shared moment creates energy that moves outward. This idea appears symbolically in the way the Lich's influence weakens whenever characters act together. Their actions disrupt his stillness, not through force, but through the presence of multiple internal worlds intersecting. Each internal world carries its own motion. Each carries its own rhythm. The Lich cannot swallow rhythms that multiply. His emptiness stands alone. Life stands in chorus. This difference reveals why emptiness cannot fully consume meaning. Meaning replicates itself through connection. It spreads across relationships, stories, gestures, and shared emotions. The Lich cannot counter this because he does not understand it. He cannot feel connection, so he cannot anticipate its strength. When Finn holds his friends close, he generates movement. When Jake shields his family, he generates movement. When Princess Bubblegum makes a plan, she generates movement. When Marceline takes a stand, she generates movement. Even Ice King, confused as he is, generates movement through the memory of what he lost. Each of these movements pushes against the Lich's stillness. This repeated act of pushing back becomes the emotional heart of the story. It shows that life seeks to continue even when confronted with complete emptiness. It shows that people resist not because they understand the void, but because they cannot accept the loss of movement within themselves. They refuse to surrender their spark, even when the void feels overwhelming. The Lich cannot understand this refusal. He does not see the value in motion, so resistance appears unnecessary. Yet this misunderstanding becomes his greatest limitation. He cannot predict the resilience of meaning. He cannot anticipate the strength of connection. He cannot grasp why beings fight to preserve something as fragile as life. His emptiness blinds him to the forces that oppose him. In the end, when life pushes back against the Lich, it shows that motion is more powerful than stillness. Not through force, but through persistence. Life continues to renew itself. The Lich cannot renew anything. Life adapts. The Lich remains fixed. Life grows. The Lich remains empty. Life shares its spark. The Lich cannot spark anything. Through this contrast, the story reveals a gentle truth. Emptiness may feel overwhelming at times, but life contains a quiet instinct that always moves forward. Even when the spark dims, even when hope feels tired, even when the world grows heavy, something inside continues to push. That push is the essence of being alive. The Lich stands as the symbol of the void waiting beyond all things. But the characters show that as long as movement remains, even in the smallest form, even in a single heartbeat, the void cannot claim the world. Most beings leave echoes behind them. These echoes appear in memories, in changed landscapes, in the people who have grown because of shared moments. Even the smallest character in U alters the world by existing within it. Their presence shapes events, relationships, and emotions. When they depart, the world carries traces of their movement. A friend remembers a conversation. A kingdom holds a story. A song survives long after the singer has walked away. These echoes are proof that life leaves marks. The Lich stands apart from this pattern. He does not leave echoes, he removes them. Wherever he moves, the traces of life recede. He does not create scars, because scars are signs of healing. He does not create ruins, because ruins are memories of structure. He does not create legends, because legends carry emotion. His presence erases the residue that life normally leaves behind. What he leaves is emptiness. To understand emptiness through the Lich, it is necessary to explore this concept of the echo, not as a sound, but as a lingering presence. Most beings shape the world through the influence they leave behind. Finn's courage inspires others to seek hope. Jake's warmth softens tension. Princess Bubblegum's structure builds order. Marceline's history adds depth to the world. Even Ice King leaves echoes of longing and confusion. The Lich denies the world these echoes. Wherever he passes, the space becomes quiet in a way that feels unnatural. His influence devours continuity. This devouring reveals something about the nature of emptiness. Emptiness is not simply the absence of sound. It is the absence of lasting impact. When someone feels deeply empty, they sometimes feel as though their actions do not matter. Their presence does not leave marks, and their voice dissolves into the air without shaping anything. The Lich expresses this sensation externally. His void denies the world the echoes normally produced by life. When he corrupts a place, the corruption carries no memory. It does not preserve the meaning that once existed there. It erases it. Plants wither without leaving seeds. Atmospheres lose their warmth. Magic fades without leaving sparks. Even when he is defeated, the spaces he touched hold a strange stillness afterward, as if the world needs time to remember how to breathe again. This stillness is the echo of his absence, not the echo of his presence. Characters sense this void-like influence even after he is gone. They step into places where he once stood, and the air feels thinner. Sound travels differently. Movements feel heavier. Even when colour returns, something underneath remains subdued until life reinforces its presence. The echo he leaves behind is not a footprint. It is the outline of something that removed weight from the world. This absence of echo becomes especially clear when comparing him to other major forces. When Princess Bubblegum rules, the world remembers it through structure, rules, and legacy. When Marceline wanders, the world remembers her through stories, songs, and history. When Finn and Jake adventure, the world remembers them through connections formed along the way. Even antagonists leave echoes. Magic Man's chaos leaves emotional scars. Orgalorg leaves cosmic consequences. The Ice King leaves memories that are both tragic and strange. The Lich leaves none of these. This lack of echo is not a failure. It is the pure expression of his nature. Echoes belong to things that make contact with life. He makes no contact, he consumes. He does not imprint feelings because he has none. He does not change landscapes because change implies transformation. He drains the presence from whatever he touches until the world has nothing left to respond to. This reveals an emotional truth. When someone feels emotionally empty for long periods, they sometimes worry that they are not leaving echoes in the lives of others. They fear their presence has no weight. They feel disconnected from the world around them. The Lich embodies this fear, literally. His existence expresses the idea of moving through a world without shaping it, without forming impressions, without leaving warmth behind. Yet the story also reveals a contrast. The other characters, through their resilience, overwrite his absence with new presence. After the Lich is pushed back, life returns, plants regrow. People reconnect, magic returns to its rhythm. These restorations create echoes that break the stillness he leaves behind. They show that absence can be replaced with presence, that emptiness can be filled. The world does not remain hollow where he once stood. Life insists on leaving marks. This interplay between absence and presence becomes one of the quiet emotional threads in Adventure Time. Life leaves echoes because it carries motion. Emptiness leaves none because it carries nothing. But the world prefers presence. It prefers warmth. It prefers story. When the Lich's void presses against the world pushes back not only through action, but through its ability to restore itself. This restoration is not dramatic. It happens slowly, through details. A flower grows in a place where something dark once stood. A friend laughs in a room that once felt silent. A new story begins where an old one was threatened. The Lich does not leave echoes, but life echoes over him. This is why his influence cannot reshape the world permanently. The world remembers how to be alive, even when the void tries to silence that memory. The concept of echo also reveals something about the limits of emptiness. Emptiness cannot grow. It cannot replicate. It cannot expand meaningfully. It can only erase. Because it cannot create, it cannot leave lasting marks that shape future events. It can only interrupt. This makes the Lich powerful in the moment, but weak in the long term. The world naturally moves toward continuation. The Lich cannot interrupt that permanently because continuation recreates echoes where he removed them. This is why characters survive him. It is not because they overpower him physically, it is because life naturally leaves more imprint than emptiness can erase. A single moment of connection overrides a wide space of quiet. A single act of care overshadows a long stretch of emptiness. A single spark can reignite meaning. Life leaves echoes that ripple outward long after events end. The Lich cannot understand these ripples because he carries nothing inside that can produce them. The absence of echo also reveals why he does not evolve as a character. Characters who leave echoes learn from those echoes. They hear the resonance of their actions in others. They grow because the world reflects their presence back to them. The Lich cannot grow because he leaves nothing behind to reflect. His emptiness is closed. His world contains no resonance. Without resonance, there is no change. This is what makes him a static force in a dynamic world. Oo reacts to him, but he does not react to Oo. He erases, but does not remember what he erased. He destroys, but does not carry the weight of destruction. He interrupts life, but does not consider what life does afterward. His void stands separate from the cycle of cause and effect that shapes all other characters. Because he leaves no echoes, he receives none. Through this stillness, the story presents a quiet philosophy. Echoes matter because they prove something existed. They prove life made contact with the world. They prove meaning was shared. The Lich's emptiness shows what the world becomes when echoes disappear. The characters show what the world becomes when echoes persist. In the end, the echo he leaves behind is not a trace of him. It is a trace of the world recovering from him. His presence removes meaning, but the world generates new meaning in his absence. His void erases, but the world fills the erasure with new stories. His stillness silences the space, but movement returns. His only echo is the reminder of how easily meaning can disappear and how quietly life can rebuild it once the void fades. The Lich does not leave echoes, the world echoes around him. There is a quiet that settles at the end of a long reflection, not the quiet of defeat or exhaustion, but the quiet that comes when something has been understood. This quiet is gentle. It arrives when a person sits with an idea long enough that it becomes part of the inner landscape. When exploring emptiness through the Lich, this is the quiet that appears now. It is the quiet that comes from recognizing that he does not simply represent absence. He represents the shape of absence, the outline of what life is not, and in doing so, he reveals what life is. The Lich stands as one of the stillest presences in adventure time. He does not change, he does not grow, he does not shift in response to love, anger, hope, or fear. He exists as the constant weight of silence. When he appears, characters sense not a monster, but a boundary. They sense the border of existence, the place where stories stop and nothing continues. His stillness becomes the contrast that allows every other movement to be seen clearly. To understand emptiness through him is to understand that emptiness is not loud, it is not chaotic, it does not announce itself. It is the quiet that follows the fading of inner spark. It is the space left behind when meaning recedes. It is the feeling of watching the world move while feeling unable to move with it. The Lich embodies this state not as a metaphor, but as a natural expression of his being. He does not crave silence. He is silence. He does not pursue stillness. He is stillness. Yet the more clearly he reflects emptiness, the more clearly the world reflects life. Throughout the story, whenever the Lich appears, the world around him responds with motion. Finn becomes more determined, Jake becomes more protective, Princess Bubblegum becomes more focused, Marceline becomes more grounded. Even Ice King, through confusion and sadness, shows flashes of clarity. The void that the Lich carries reveals the strength of the spark within others. His presence shows how deeply life treasures its own existence. This is one of the subtle emotional truths at the heart of the story. Emptiness threatens meaning, but by threatening it, emptiness reveals its importance. Without the Lich, the characters might never confront the fragility of their inner worlds. They might never realize how precious their connections are. They might never see how easily hope can fade, if not protected. The Lich does not teach these lessons. He does not intend them, but his existence reveals them. He stands as an unchanging center, and the world moves around him with more determination because it does not wish to resemble him. This dynamic creates a strange kind of clarity. When he speaks, his voice carries no feeling, and that absence of feeling highlights the depth of emotion in others. When he stands still, his stillness emphasizes the restless energy of the living. When he removes meaning, his removal reveals how much meaning life builds. Through his emptiness, the show reveals the ongoing attempt of living beings to create connection where none existed before. The Lich shows the audience what a world without inner life would look like. Not a world of fire or chaos, but a world of quiet without possibility. A world where no stories continue and no voices rise. A world where nothing changes because nothing exists to change. In this way, he becomes an anchor that sets the tone for every emotional response that surrounds him. The world defines itself against his emptiness. Understanding emptiness through him also brings attention to a gentle, emotional truth. People may feel empty at times. They may feel as though their inner spark has quieted, or as though their thoughts and feelings have become distant. They may worry that their presence leaves no mark, or that their story has lost momentum. The Lich represents the extreme version of this state, but the story shows that even in the presence of absolute void, the smallest spark of life persists. Characters repeatedly prove this by pushing against his influence. They continue to move even when stillness feels overwhelming. They continue to care even when caring feels heavy. They continue to create meaning even when the world grows dark. Their actions show that emptiness cannot erase the possibility of renewal. The world rebuilds itself. The self rebuilds itself. Movement returns. The Lich shows what happens when emptiness becomes complete. The rest of the cast shows that emptiness is not destiny. It is a moment to be moved through, not a state to become lost in. This contrast becomes most meaningful in the final reflections of the story. After the Lich is defeated, the world does not return to normal immediately. Life does not spring back in bursts of triumph. It returns slowly, gently, through small actions that accumulate. Someone fixes a broken structure. Someone reconnects with a friend. Someone listens more deeply. Someone breathes easier. The world repairs itself in the same way a person heals from emotional hollowing, quietly and with persistence. The Lich does not participate in this healing. He cannot. His emptiness does not allow growth, but his stillness highlights why healing matters. His presence shows what life must not become. His void becomes the shape against which meaning is carved. This final chapter rests in that understanding. The Lich is the silence at the edge of existence. He represents what life looks like when nothing inside remains. He reflects a state that many fear quietly, a state where the inner world loses its spark. But he also reveals the resilience of life by standing as the contrast to it. Through him, the story shows that movement is precious precisely because stillness exists. That emotion is meaningful precisely because emotional absence exists. That connection matters precisely because it can be lost. The meaning of emptiness through the Lich is not found in what he destroys. It is found in what remains after he is gone. It is found in the way characters hold each other closer. It is found in the way the world refuses to stay silent. It is found in the gentle insistence of life to keep moving, even when the void waits at the edge of everything. He is the dark outline around the light. He is the stillness that emphasizes motion. He is the silence that emphasizes voice. And because of this, he becomes a reminder that life contains meaning, even when that meaning feels faint. The spark inside people may dim, but it does not vanish as long as someone moves toward warmth or reaches for connection. The Lich is the emptiness that reveals the value of being full.